Hello, chat. Hello. I hope everyone's having a good morning or evening or whatever. If you're new here, please make sure to read the rules. If you're below the age of 18, I'll have to ask you to leave or you will be banned. Alright? And also, if you break any of the rules, that's just common knowledge. But, hi, my name is Cammy, or Cammy the Dork, and I normally don't stream early in the morning. Not at all. Not at all. So I may be a little quiet, because I'm still trying to wake up a little. But I decided, hey, why not work on some art, specifically some commissions that I need to get finished and started on. Which, by the way, my commissions are open. So if you're curious about that, you can check out Exchange Point socials and go to my link tree to see all that fun information. And also, if you'd like to support me, exclamation point coffee and exclamation point donate are two ways you can do so. And if you'd like to suggest me anything on my throne, or perhaps buy me something, I also have a throne. And of course, if you're feeling also artsy and you enjoy a moment from the stream or whatever you want, exclamation point art. And last but not least, if you would like to catch up on any of my previous VODs and streams, I have a VOD channel. But chat, we're just gonna relax, we're gonna chill out, we're gonna have a good time. I may be a little quiet because, like I said, I am still kind of waking up. Sorry. I have been up since 8:30ish. So, sorry. But chat, I'm gonna be working on my friend Luca's commission that they commissioned me for. I am drawing one of their favorite gals from Zombieland Saga. So yeah. Oh, and chat, by the way, if you would like to help me be able to afford a text-to-speech buddy commission, I have a goal on my Ko-fi that you can follow, so you can do so. I already have 14% of the way there, so if you would like to help me be able to get a text-to-speech buddy of that funny little creature on the starting soon screen, that's how you can do it. Yeah. And also, chat, we have emotes now. You can, well, some are still pending, but if you subscribe, you can use my funny new emotes. You can use my funny little emotes. And also my channel points, which are called beans. Last night I thought of some fun little things to do for channel point stuff. So if you also subscribe, you get channel points faster, so that's just something. But chat, let's just get started. And maybe once my friends wake up, they'll be willing to jump in call, but we'll have to see. I'm not in Discord right now, but if any of them message me and are like, hey, can I jump in a call? Then I'll be like, sure. Sure, friend. Sure. But hi, chat. I am my spooky PNG tuber right now. Smiles. I'm Franken Cammy. And this is Leon. Leon's my pal, my best friend, my buddy. Hold on, let me, if you see this little guy, you see that quality? You see how cute he is? You wanna know where you can get commission of this guy? Hey, Sloth. If you check out Wait, hold on. If you check out Hippie Sloth, you can check out their cool streams, and also they do art. And also, hold on, chat. I gotta go to Twitter real quick. Hold, chat, hold. You can also donate to Hippie, because Hippie needs any support they can get. Because they're a little behind on bills and all that, and any amount helps. If you have anything to spare, please donate to Hippie. Hippie is a very cool person, and I really appreciate them. And they're always so kind, and they're so funny, and they're just great. So, if you can, please help Hippie, and also check them out. They're a very cool person. Okay? Okay. Oh yeah, and chat. If I sound different, I cleared off my desk. I cleaned my desk like I said I would. So now I'm sitting in an office chair, and my back will not suffer anymore. And hopefully also my audio. Oh. There we go. There we go. Hey. I was adjusting my tablet screen, chat. Sorry about that. There we go. I'm definitely not used to streaming this early, chat. The last time I streamed this early was for my birthday when I first started streaming. And also when I did a small donation-thon, like fun little event a little way back, where I did a You Laugh, You Lose. And if I laughed, I would have to eat very spicy hot wings, which, if you don't know, I'm very white and I can't handle my spices. So, those were the only 2 times I've ever gotten really early for a stream. But I woke up this morning and remembered how it was literally flooding yesterday because of all the rain. And I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna take it easy today because I literally was so scared yesterday because it was literally flooding everywhere. And I drove through a lot of high water just to get back to my place. And I was like, some of those roads still may be very scary. So if I do have class today, I'm sorry, Professor, because I do not want to take that chance of my car getting stuck. I apologize. But I decided why not. I was gonna stream last night. A little late last night. Which will also explain why I'm tired. But I was gonna stream to get my mind off of the storm because I get scared of thunder and lightning really easily. But I decided instead that I would just hang out with my friends. And it was very fun. And we finished Centaur World again. I've already seen it when it first aired. But we watched through it again, and it was very awesome. And I had a lot of fun with them. And I stayed up until like 2 in the morning. Which probably wasn't the smartest idea, but I told my friends that I would try my best to stay awake for them. Because I had been going to sleep very early. Not very early, but like at 11 midnight. Like for the past few days, so I would always like miss them, or I would just leave early while they hanged out for hours. But I was like, no, I'm gonna try to stay awake so I can spend time with my friends. And I did it. I mean, they were still awake a little later, but I did last for quite a long time. I was up until like 1:30, and then I was like, okay, I have to go to bed. I have to go to bed. I was like literally about to pass out at my desk. But it was really fun, and I'm glad I got to have that experience with them. It was very, very fun. So if I yawn or in my quiet chat, I apologize. I'm trying to wake myself up. I had some breakfast. Hopefully they'll start kicking in, give me some energy. You know, the fun, good stuff. But like I said, we do have emotes. We have fun little emotes now, so if you subscribe, I try to get follower emotes, but they say you have to wait 60 days once you're affiliate for them to even open up as a chance. So I apologize for those who do not subscribe. I really did try to, but Twitch won't let me add them because I have to be affiliate for 60 days, which is very dumb, but you know. I am in charge of everything. They have a system. But there are emotes. There are little things for if you do bits. I've never seen anyone really donate bits. I don't really know how that works. But for those who sub, there are fun little things that happen. And for those who donate, there's also something fun that happens. So you know. So you know, chat. And it just really helps me out. It helps me out because, with, my medicine I'm taking and all that, I haven't gotten really a chance to search for a job. Or really given a chance to find a job. So, any amount helps. Any amount helps to help support me. And like I said also, if you would like to commission me, ask me about it. I'll give you the link to my Twitter or wherever you want to talk, and we can discuss it, and I can show you the prices and all that good stuff. So just let me know, chat. And of course, if you just want a simple doodle or whatever, you can also just go to my Ko-fi and donate $3. $3, and I'll do a simple doodle for you. But right now, chat, I am catching up on commissions because I am a little behind. That is mostly my fault. I am working on my friend Luca's commission right now, getting that started. Hopefully I can get it done today. And then I need to start on Lunar's commission that they commissioned me way back. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, Lunar. I'm so sorry, Lunar. It didn't help that at the time when Lunar commissioned me, I was about to be on the verge of a depressive arc. Where I was feeling nothing. I'm doing better now. Don't worry. But it was definitely like, oh yeah, I'll do this. And then I just got very depressed. And I didn't do it because I just was so bleh. But I feel like everyone has that like moment where they're like, yeah, I can do that, and then they get to it and they're like, eh. But thankfully, I'm not like that at the moment. Thankfully, that has stopped because now I am on the right medication, and hopefully, it will help me with my anxiety. That is what I hope for. Which, by the way, chat, make sure you eat, drink water, stay hydrated, and if you take medication, take your medication. Or your vitamins. Make sure you take your vitamins. This has been your daily, early morning Cami, telling you to take your medicine, take care of yourself. Okay? Okay. Okay. Go. Chad, there's like a part of me that wants to like put on like a video essay like in the background to like watch or whatever. But I think that would be annoying to y'all. I don't know. I've just been in the mood recently to just watch like video essays about things and just like draw while I listen to them. But I don't know if that would be good or not because I don't want to be annoying. Because some people like music. And I don't despise music when I'm drawing. It's just whenever I draw, like on my free time, I'll just put on a video and I'll just draw while I like kind of tune in every once in a while to pay attention to it. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna get a video. I changed my mind. I don't care. Well, I do care, but like, you know what? It's my stream. I get to make the rules. I'm gonna put on a video so I can all relax and watch it. Hold on, chat. I I want you to look at this. I just put on a random like Nintendo music playlist, but I just want you to see the image that I just stopped on. Link said, "What the fuck do you think you're doing? You're thinking about stopping this playlist and putting on something else? Nuh-uh. Play the music again, streamer." uh, okay. Sorry, I was not expecting to see Link with a gun pointing at me. So early in the morning. Videos. Videos that I can watch. I know exactly who I can watch. I'm gonna put on a video from my favorite YouTuber. We'll put on this one, because it's like 39 minutes. Here. Here, chat, here. Let me get something to be able to share this with you. Is it? I think it's. Well, I'm trying to figure out something again. Let me see. I don't know if this will work, but I'm just gonna try it. Because it's been a while since I've had to do this. Let me see. It's probably not this. Oh, would you look at that? It is this. Oh, wait. I just realized I probably could control that. That's very interesting though. I didn't know I could do that. I think it's just a window capture. Yeah, it's just a window capture. YouTube. There we go. Okay. Let me hit OK on that. Let me switch it. Yeah, that's right. Let me get it. Let me shrink it down. We could put it right here. And I'll full screen it. Don't worry, chat. I'll full screen it. We'll put it right here. We'll move it down so it's not covering up anything. Let me full screen it. What? I think this is good. Let me go to Clip Studio. There we go. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. We're gonna be watching one of my favorite YouTubers, Izzy's. This is their recent creepypasta video that they made. It's very, very good. I've already watched it like a few times, but I just like having information videos on in the background because it helps me to be able to draw, and it's just kind of something nice to have on. So I hope you also enjoy it, chat. I hope you also like it. And also, if I need to change the audio, please let me know, or if I need to put on captions. I'll probably just turn on captions by itself, just so y'all can have those. Yeah, this seems good. I'll put them right there. But let's just get right into it, chat.
Creepypasta was coined on 4chan around 2007 to describe short online horror stories that could be easily copy and pasted around the internet. The genre experienced a huge boom in popularity around the late 2000s to the early 2010s, and since then it's enjoyed many, many years of widespread popularity. These days the term creepypasta encompasses basically anything and everything from urban legends and chain letters to ARGs to short horror fiction and poetry to good old campfire story spooks. Today we're going to start our journey into the creepypasta iceberg, which collates a ton of different creepypastas and ranks them by how well known they are. At the top of the iceberg we have the most iconic and well known pastas, and at the very bottom are more obscure and esoteric stories. I'm super excited to jump in, especially to this first layer, since all of the most classic, iconic creepypastas can be found here in all their silly 2010s glory. So sit back, relax, and grab yourself a bowl of piping hot pasta, because today we're diving into the creepypasta iceberg, Part 1. Before we jump into things, I just want to give a huge thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. If you want to make a website for literally anything you can think of, Squarespace save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. A huge thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and now let's dive into the creepypasta iceberg Part 1. Before we start delving into the cold, deep depths of the spooky iceberg, I just want to explain a couple of things about it first. There's a super wide variety of creepypastas on this list, from old classics to video game and lost episode creepypastas to Reddit no sleep stories to terribly written cringe fest to genuinely interesting works of horror fiction and more. For the creepypastas that have interesting histories or backstories or have influenced internet culture, I'll be diving into that since that's what I tend to find most interesting. But if an entry on the iceberg doesn't have much information about it or doesn't have much history, I'll just give a brief run through of the story. This iceberg will contain some discussion of disturbing topics, however, in order to please YouTube's algorithm, we won't be talking about anything gruesome in too much detail, and any really disturbing or graphic entries will be very briefly mentioned or even skipped altogether. It's also worth noting that there are a few ARG/unfiction stories on here. I know they don't technically count as creepypasta necessarily, but they're on here and they're fun to talk about. Just because I know if I don't mention it, all of the hardcore creepypasta fans are going to be arguing semantics in the comments, and I don't think any of us want that. Finally, I'd like to give a huge thanks to Reddit user Avag Scalatorium for creating this creepypasta iceberg, and a link to the original will be included in the description below. Without further ado, let's get into part 1 of the creepypasta iceberg. Slenderman. If you've been online in any way, shape or form in the last 10 years, you're probably already pretty familiar with who Slenderman is, so I'll keep this one short. Slenderman was created in 2009 on the Something Awful forums by a user called Victor Surge, now known by his real name Eric Knudsen. Slenderman was depicted as an unnaturally tall and, slender humanoid creature with a black suit and a featureless white face, as well as long tendrils that extended from his back. He was said to stalk his victims, often children, driving them mad and even turning them into his proxies, basically evil minions who would do his
Sorry about
bidding.
that, chat. Oh my
Slenderman
gosh,
took
I
on a life
just
of its own
sneezed
beyond
so
Eric
hard.
Knudsen's
Ow.
writings on the Something Awful forums, becoming
I'm
a
fine.
pop cultural icon and the star of countless games, parody videos, memes, and B-grade movies. However, Slenderman's enormous popularity was greatly diminished in 2014 when a 12-year-old girl in Waukesha, Wisconsin was nearly killed by two classmates who were trying to sacrifice her to the Slenderman. A moral panic occurred over the character and the effects of creepypasta on young minds, and while this public outcry did eventually die down, the Slenderman mythos never quite reached those same levels of fame as it once had. Tiki Toby. Leading on from the last entry, Tiki Toby is a Slenderman fan character who became so popular that he was officially adopted by the fans into the Slenderman canon. Toby is one of Slenderman's proxies and is basically your standard evil, sadistic killer with a sarcastic, quirky sense of humor and a tortured backstory. And also he happens to be a cute anime boy, so 13-year-olds can make a lot of fan art of him, mostly shipping him with other popular creepypasta boys. I think in retrospect the main thing that sets Tiki Toby apart from his contemporaries is the weirdly offensive use as Tourette's as a spooky character trait. From the original Tiki Toby creepypasta published in 2013 on DeviantArt by user Castaway, quote, "The other major disorder he had faced, which was the one that deemed him many insulting nicknames in the short time he attended grade school before he switched to homeschooling, was his Tourette syndrome, which caused him to tick and twitch in ways that he couldn't control. He would crack his neck uncontrollably and twitch every once in a while. The kids would tease him and call him Tiki Toby, and they mocked him with exaggerated twitching and laughing." I don't have Tourette's, so I guess I can't really comment on whether you should or should not be offended by this, so, people that have Tourette's, sound off in the comments. Tiki Toby. Offensive or just plain silly. Eyeless Jack. Eyeless Jack, aka Jack, aka EJ, aka the heir of Chernobog, according to the wiki, is a creepypasta character created in 2012 by creepypasta wiki user Azel5000. To quote the Villains wiki, which I'm embarrassed to even admit that I used as a source in this video, quote, "At the age of 19, Jack Nyrus was once a normal human of American origin before he was used by a cult as a human sacrifice, which involved the removal of his eyes and a liquid mixture of hot tar and blood being poured into his sockets. The sacrifice failed, however, resulting in the ritual accidentally turning Eyeless Jack into the eldritch kidney-eating monster that he is now." The funniest thing about Eyeless Jack to me personally is that you look up fan art of him and he's always this hot, sad boy with fluffy hair and an oversized sweater and a blue mask that he's sadly peeking out from. And then you look at the original creepypasta image and it's this. The dude looks like a thumb. Laughing Jack. Continuing the trend of insert
does
verb
look
here,
like a
Jack
thumb.
names, Laughing Jack is a creepypasta character that rose to prominence basically solely by virtue of having a cool design that was fun to draw. In the creepypasta of the same name, Laughing Jack was a lovable imaginary friend who became the companion of a little boy in the 1800s. He appeared as a colourful Jack-in-the-Box toy who was always smiling and cheerful. That is, until the little boy forgot about him and grew up to become a cold-blooded killer. The combination of being abandoned and corrupted by the boy's evil influence turned Laughing Jack #evil and #scary as all his colors disappeared and he took on a frightening demonic appearance. I'm sure that you can guess how the story goes from here. Laughing Jack becomes a creepy, spooky killer clown and the anime boy fan art rolls in. Seriously, Laughing Jack is considered by many to be a part of that sort of main iconic group of creepypasta characters alongside Slenderman and Jeff the Killer, and I can only assume it's because kids enjoyed making anime boy fan art of him. Actually, at the end of the day, honestly, that's what a lot of these creepypasta characters boil down to, because kids are weird. Moving on, Herobrine. Herobrine is an infamous Minecraft creepypasta character said to be the deceased brother of the game's developer, Notch. Rumors of Herobrine's existence began circulating around August of 2010 on the Minecraft forums and told of a non-playable character with a default skin and blank white eyes. This screenshot was the most widely circulated quote-unquote proof of his existence at the time as the story gained popularity. Herobrine would stalk the player through the game, appearing faintly in the fog or just out of the corner of the player's eyes, and strange structures would be found throughout the game world. Some even told of Herobrine crashing the game or sending them private messages on the forum telling them to stop talking about him. Of course, Herobrine was just a clever hoax and a work of fiction, but the easily replicated premise of the story, i.e. basically any kid can go into Minecraft wearing a Herobrine skin and take a screenshot, combined with the simple fact that a lot of Minecraft's hardcore player base are children, meant that the story spread like wildfire. Notch himself eventually stepped in to confirm that Herobrine did not exist, and he didn't even have a brother, but this didn't stop Herobrine from reaching urban legend status not just within the Minecraft community, but on the wider internet. Jeff the Killer. Alright, so pretty much everyone already knows about this guy, right? The story of Jeff the Killer, who becomes a crazed murderer after he's disfigured by bullies, has been circulating online since 2008, and it's so famous that I'm willing to bet most of you have already heard the story many times. What I find more interesting than the frankly quite poorly written creepypasta is the origin of this iconic image, which is now considered lost media. Believe it or not, this image is photoshopped, big shock, I know, and in recent times lost media
That image used to scare me all the time when I was younger.
Image. The earliest instance of the edited Jeff image was 3 years before the creepypasta was written on a site
It genuinely
called
scared me.
Paya.cc by user OmegaVolt on November 16th, 2005. But it turns out there's an even earlier version of the image, still photoshopped but with a distinctly less scary and more goofy look. The first instance of this earlier iteration was posted on a Japanese media sharing site called fileman.n1e.jp by an anonymous user on July 24th, 2005, which you'll note was a few months before the scary Jeff edit was first posted. The caption of the post, a certain celebrity before plastic surgery, suggests that the image was being used as a meme and spread around as a joke. The original poster, Miyama, replied to a comment asking about where they found the image, writing, quote, "To put it simply, in mid-2005, a cropped image of a video of a middle-aged Asian woman appeared in Japan. At that point the face was white. I edited a little in Photoshop to post to Paya.cc, so take from that what you will." While this does shed some light on the early origins of the image, we're no closer to finding the original unedited source image, and as Miyama has claimed that they don't have it anymore, it's fully possible that it'll just end up lost media forever. The Russian Sleep Experiment. The Russian Sleep Experiment, published in late 2010, tells the fictitious story of an experiment gone wrong, which also happens to take place in Russia and have to do with sleep. Thus the name. 5 political prisoners were used as test subjects for a stimulant gas that kept them constantly awake. Though the experiment was meant to go on for 30 days, it only lasted 15 before the test subjects were driven to insanity. They began whispering to the cameras hidden throughout the room and running around screaming incoherently before eventually barricading themselves inside the test room and going silent for days on end. When the room was finally opened up, the researchers were horrified at what they found. The test subjects had begun to eat their own bodies to the point where their bones were visible, all in the name of staying awake, now terrified of even falling asleep. The test subjects who were subdued and taken to the hospital all died suddenly the moment they were put under anesthesia and fell asleep, aside from 2 who were to be sealed back into the stimulant gas chamber alongside 3 researchers. One of these researchers immediately shot the commander who gave the order, refusing to be sealed away with the sleepless creatures. He shot the 2 remaining test subjects as well, and this being an early creepypasta, of course the ending is super corny and overblown. Before being shot, one of the test subjects gives this like hilariously overdramatic speech. It's really great. I'll read it for you. "We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread." Like, yeah. Okay. The Russian sleep experiment definitely has its merits. The spooky experiment gone wrong formula felt a lot fresher and more unique back then, and the premise of the experiment driving its subjects to actually fair sleep is definitely an interesting one. But for the most part, the writing is pretty basic and leans way too heavily into overly detailed and long descriptions about how gory and gross the subjects were. It's one of those that's scary because it's violent and graphic creepypastas that under the surface don't really have much substance to them, to be honest, but still it's remembered by many as an extremely iconic creepypasta. Also, fun fact, for a long time people didn't know where this image, which often accompanied the creepypasta, came from. It was eventually discovered that it was a darkened image of a Halloween prop called Spasm, so there you go. The more you know. The Smiling Man. The Smiling Man is a horror story written by L.S. Riley, more commonly known as Blue Tidal, on Reddit. In it, the author recounts their terrifying experience on a late-night walk where they encountered a tall, lanky man in a suit with a cartoonishly wide grin who was dancing towards them. Unnerved, they crossed the street and attempted to put some distance between them, but the man began to follow them, eventually running at full speed with the freakish grin still pasted across his face, causing the author to flee. The Smiling Man was originally posted on r/Let's Not Meet, a subreddit dedicated to true stories of terrifying encounters, before being revealed as a fictional story when it was posted to r/No Sleep, which as a side note personally annoys me because Let's Not Meet is absolutely filled with fake stories designed to get as much karma as possible, which kind of defeats the purpose of it being a subreddit for true stories. It's a real problem on that subreddit in particular, but also, let's be honest, you didn't come to this video to hear me talk about niche subreddit politics, so let's move on. Dead Bart. Dead Bart is one of the most infamous early examples of a lost episode creepypasta. It was written in early 2010 by a GameFAQs user called K.I. Simpson in a thread discussing mouse.avi, and this was their attempt at a similar story. And don't worry, we will be touching on that one later in the video. Dead Bart was a lost episode of The Simpsons in which Bart got sucked out of an airplane and died, with hyper-realistic depictions of his body and the Simpson family grieving his loss as they became skeletally thin and visit his grave. Other #spooky details are thrown in, such as the gravestones listing celebrities and their dates of death, including celebrities which are still alive. One detail that I personally find super funny is that the author gets the link to the Dead Bart video off of Matt Groening himself at a convention, and he writes down the URL to the download on a piece of paper and gives it to them. It's silly and overdone, but at the time lost episode creepypastas were a more new and novel concept, so it was received pretty well. It helped to popularize the innocent kids franchise's actually scary genre, which basically hinges on that whole childhood ruined spooky factor. Abandoned by Disney. Abandoned by Disney, written by Slime Beast and submitted to the Creepypasta Wiki on December 8th of
Oh no, the video
2012,
froze.
was the story of a tourist exploring an abandoned Disney resort called Mowgli's Palace. Urban exploration and abandoned
What
building
happened?
walkthroughs were super
sorry,
big
chat.
at the time, so this
I didn't
story
realize
sort
it
of harps
froze.
on those themes. It's actually pretty fun
Do let
and
me know if it
engaging,
does
right
freeze
up
so I
until
can
the point
fix
where
it.
the author discovers
Please,
that
please,
a haunted photo-negative Mickey Mouse mascot is haunting the park. It's pretty silly. These creepypasta stories always have to blow it in the final act with some horribly overwrought twist or corny monster, and that's my creepypasta hot take. The Backrooms. The Backrooms, as helpfully illustrated on the shirt that I'm wearing, which is from a website called Vapor95 if you happen to want one by the way, was created on 4chan in 2019 on the X board. It's kind of hard to believe how recent that is considering how ingrained in creepypasta and even just general internet culture the Backrooms now is. Because when I say the Backrooms is popular, I really do mean popular with a capital P, popular enough to be sold on shirts. But let's back up for a second, because what actually even is the Backrooms? In the original 4chan thread, Anons were asked to post images that they found disquieting and off. One Anon replied with this image of a large empty room with yellow carpeting, accompanied by this description, quote, "If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the Backrooms where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum humbuzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you." Shortly after this post, others began creating and sharing stories about the Backrooms on 4chan and Reddit, with r/Backrooms being established as a hub for fans of the creepypasta. But a divide soon split the Backrooms community apart, and this divide tends to be seen in a lot of creepypasta communities where the creator is anonymous. Without one definitive creator that can make decisions on what is and what isn't canon, it's basically just a free-for-all with artists and writers piling on their own individual ideas. They then separate into two different camps, the ones who want to add onto and expand the canon to make it more complex, and the purists who want to stick to the original quote-unquote canon interpretation. The Backrooms very quickly grew into a complicated, multifaceted story with different levels and areas of the Backrooms, an array of monsters and creatures to inhabit them, and shady corporations and conspiracies tease about why and how the backrooms exist. At the end of the day, it's harmless fun, and I hate to be a hater, but I'm kind of on the side of the purists, personally. The original idea was super simple and short, and that's what made it so spooky and so interesting. The idea of this creepy liminal space that stretches on forever makes you wonder what could be lurking in there, and the wondering is honestly scarier than showing the monsters and coming up for explanations as to why they exist. But that's just me. The Backrooms is as popular as ever, with A24 even in the works to come out with a movie inspired by the now infamous creepypasta, Sonic.exe. Despite its questionable quality, Sonic.exe is often cited as one of the most influential early video game creepypastas, alongside pastas like Ben Drowned and Godzilla NES, inspiring countless other tales of haunted games and .exe files. Published to the Creepypasta wiki in 2011 by a user called JC the Hyena, Sonic.exe begins with the author, Tom, receiving a package from a friend called Kyle. It contains a disc labeled Sonic.exe, as well as a hastily written note begging Tom to destroy the disc. Being a good friend, Tom ignores these desperate pleas and starts up Sonic.exe, excited to play through a Sonic game and relive his childhood. He quickly discovers that the game is haunted by some malevolent entity. The Sega 1991 trademark becomes Sega 666, the ocean in the title screen looks like, quote, blood but hyper-realistic, and an evil bloody-eyed Sonic begins chasing Tom through the game. The creepypasta is basically just a long-winded play-by-play of every level and all the creepy and spooky things that happen, and the climax of the story is that Sonic EXE is actually IRL! After I sat there for 25 seconds, I heard a voice right behind me like a whisper. Try to keep this interesting for me, Tom. I turned around to see where the voice came from, and what I saw made me scream. Sitting on my bed, staring right at me, was a Sonic plushie smiling with bloodstains under its eyes. After the release of this story, multiple fan-made recreations of the haunted Sonic.exe games were created, some of which were played by huge YouTubers like PewDiePie and Markiplier, further popularizing the original creepypasta. Lavender Town Syndrome. Lavender Town Syndrome is a creepypasta that I, and I'm sure many of you, also fell for hook, line, and sinker as a kid. In the early 2010s, an anonymous post was made to 99chan claiming that the music in Lavender Town, a location in the 1996 games Pokemon Red and Blue, was responsible for making children sick and even driving them to outright insanity. This was blamed on the high-pitched tones and binaural beats featured in the chiptune music, which only children and teenagers could hear. It was purported that listening to the song would cause headaches, nausea, disorientation, and mild to severe symptoms of mental illness. A video analyzing the song's audio was later posted to YouTube, with a spectrogram output showing several unknowns spelling out the phrase "leave now," as well as some ghost sprites. It's been argued in recent years whether binaural beats of this nature would even be possible on the Game Boy with its limited audio capabilities, with the overwhelming consensus being that no. Not to mention the supposed spectrogram output was obviously photoshopped, and there are no records of any deaths or hospitalizations in Japan in the 1990s connected to Pokemon or binaural beats. This didn't stop me and tons of other kids from being deathly afraid of Lavender Town Syndrome, though. I distinctly remember as a kid watching videos all the time that would be like top 10 creepy Pokedex entries or top 10 creepy things in Pokemon, and if a creator was using that song, I was immediately clicking out, even if it was like a cover of the Lavender Town theme. No. I was gone. Squidward's thing. I'm gonna be quick about this one because YouTube doesn't like discussions of this particular topic, but Squidward's You Know What is a creepypasta revolving around a lost episode of SpongeBob. It has all the classic lost episode cliches, hyper-realistic blood eyes, real images of crimes spliced into the episode, and driving everyone who sees it to near madness. It also has an iconic spooky image associated with it, this edit of Squidward with bleeding red eyes. While the creepypasta gets credit for being one of the earliest of its genre, published in early 2010, it's by no means the best of its genre, and by today's standards it's pretty goofy. Ted the Caver. Ted the Caver is often cited as one of the earliest online creepypastas to gain widespread popularity and notoriety. It was launched as an Angel Fire page in early 2001 and told the story of a man called Ted who ventured into a cave that he dubbed the Mystery Cave. The story is told in a found footage/found document format, with the Angel Fire site functioning as a sort of diary for Ted as he explains through a series of blog posts what happened to him inside the Mystery Cave. Ted's experience began when he and a friend decided to make a trip to the mystery cave to do some spelunking, whereupon they found a small fist-sized opening in the rocks which they suspected may lead to a bigger unexplored passage of the cave. Over the course of the next few days, they tirelessly worked to chisel away at the opening. It was hard, slow work, which wasn't helped by a mysterious windy howling noise and a low rumbling which resonated from deep within the cave. As the two men continued to work at the tiny cave opening, they began to experience more and more bizarre occurrences. They heard blood-curdling screaming noises, found strange crystals and hieroglyphics inside the new passage, and a friend that they sent in to explore the cave came up pale and trembling and immediately ran out and refused to contact them afterwards. Things came to a climax during one trip when Ted descended into the cave and became overwhelmed by an intense feeling of dread as strange noises, sensations, and horrible stenches began to fill the cave. As he was escaping, he saw the rope he came up on being pulled back into the cave by some unknown force, which caused the two men to flee the cave and vow to never return. However, that vow would soon be broken as Ted uploaded a final blog entry explaining that he had been experiencing horrible nightmares and hearing strange sounds in his home, and that he felt compelled to venture back into the mystery cave for answers. He promised that he would be back with explanations for all of the strange occurrences within the cave and signed off, Love, Ted. As you may have guessed, the blog was never updated and Ted was never heard from again. This wonderful piece of horror literature, which is well worth a read by the way, has been cited by scholars on numerous occasions as an example of an extremely early and influential piece of creepypasta work. In the anthology 21st Century Digital Gothic, Joseph Crawford argued that Ted the Caver, quote, helped to pioneer two techniques that would become foundational to online horror fiction: the use of real-time updates and the use of hyperlinks. Real-time updates, hyperlinks, and using social media and website formats for found footage and document-style stories are a cornerstone of horror and ARG content online today, and we have Ted the Caver to thank for all of that. The Rake. The Rake is a fictional creature which originated on 4chan's B-board around 2009 in a thread asking Anons to contribute ideas for a new horror monster. The results were a tall, gaunt, and pale humanoid creature with large glowing eyes and a mouth full of small, sharp teeth. The original creepypasta of the Rake includes several fictional accounts of encounters with the creature dating all the way back to 1880, suggesting that this is some sort of supernatural or eldritch being with an elongated lifespan. Since its inception, the Rake has become an exceedingly popular creepypasta character featured in countless stories, games, and even a low-budget movie with 12% on Rotten Tomatoes, which honestly is how you really know that your internet horror character has made it big time. Polybius. Polybius is the name of an arcade cabinet which appeared in several locations throughout Portland, Oregon in 1981. Those who played the game quickly became addicted despite suffering from a slew of symptoms such as migraines, seizures, insomnia, and nightmares, and it was purported that mysterious men in black would occasionally visit the machines to collect data. A month after they appeared, they then vanished, never to be seen again. But the legend persisted, and Polybius became one of the most infamous urban legends of all time. Now, I hate to spoil the fun on this one, but Polybius has been well and truly debunked by this point. Despite allegedly occurring in 1981, the first online mention wouldn't come until 1998, and the first printed mention came even later in 2003. It's believed that the rumor may have started due to a combination of events that happened in 1981. There were reports of two players falling ill and having to receive medical attention after playing arcade games Tempest and Asteroids respectively, and several days later the FBI actually raided several arcades in the area on suspicion of illegal activity and would subsequently begin to monitor the arcade machines. It's hypothesized that these events may have led local kids and teens who frequented the arcades to spin a wild story about a government-run mind control operation in the arcades, leading to the story of Polybius, which would of course spread like wildfire once it reached the internet. Nowadays, Polybius has taken on a sort of internet in-joke / meme status, with countless Polybius remakes and even authentic arcade machines built and painted to replicate the legendary game. There's a fantastic video about the quest to debunk Polybius by the channel Ahoy, which is very much worth checking out. Username 666. Interestingly enough, I've actually already covered username 666 on my channel in a video about old nostalgic YouTube horror, but to recap, username 666 was a YouTube channel posted by a user called Nana825763. It depicted someone adding 666 to the end of YouTube URL and refreshing until the page became corrupted and red with disturbing clips and images filling the page. Being an extremely early example of unfiction horror, it was originally posted in February of 2008 2008, username 666 became something of an urban legend, and kids across the globe stayed up late at night with their friends typing 666 into the YouTube URL and refreshing over and over. Of course, the video was just a work of fiction and actually based on an entry into a horror video contest on Japanese video sharing site Nico Nico Douga, or NND. Nana was and still is known as a prolific and talented horror artist, having paved the way for countless other creators in the horror, ARG, and unfiction field. I'm a search and rescue officer. I'm a search and rescue officer for the US Forest Service. I have some stories to tell as a now famous creepypasta series posted to the No Sleep subreddit by the appropriately named user Search and Rescue Woods. The first installment of the series has nearly 30,000 upvotes and recounts several strange incidents that occurred to the OP during their time as a SAR officer. A child climbing up a tree never to be seen again, a man nearly falling off a mountain after encountering a hiker with no face, and most infamously, staircases. According to OP, it's extremely common to find random, perfectly intact staircases deep in the forest. Most SAR officers are aware of them but will refuse to talk about them, and under no circumstances should you ever go near them. These accounts of strange happenings really caught the attention of r/No Sleep, and soon the standalone story became a whole series, each longer and more gruesome than the last. Usually I find it annoying when No Sleep authors turn their otherwise good story into an unnecessarily long, drawn-out saga with like 10 parts, but you know what? Search and Rescue gets an exemption because it's good. It's really good. It's basically just a bunch of super weird and spooky bite-sized forest stories written in an easily digestible format with little lore tidbits sprinkled throughout. Did it need 8 parts? No, absolutely not. Do I still read through the entire thing at least once a year? Yes. It pioneered the genre of big list of spooky stuff that happened to me stories on No Sleep, and whether that's a good or a bad thing depends entirely on your taste. Smile Dog. Smile Dog is a famous
Now,
creepypasta
Smile
which
Dog?
revolves around this photoshopped image of a
Smile Dog
Siberian husky with a
scared me
human
so
smile.
bad
The
when I
more
was
specific
younger.
context of the story, it's actually a pretty goofy image, but the fact that many of you will have had a visceral
Like as he is saying, dogs are like my favorite animal when I was growing up, and still is. But like I was really like I had all types of like dog like stuff like calendars and things like that. So when I saw that image for the first time, it like really messed with me because I was like, why is the dog so scary looking? Mind you, I was like 10. But like whenever I see the image now, it just gives me like a bleh feeling. Not like where I get scared anymore, like it won't do that, but it just leaves like a sour taste in my mouth because it like really did freak me out. And I was so scared that like I thought that was gonna happen to my family dog. Like I thought I would be looking at my dog one day and then he would just like magically look like that. So it like really freaked me out. It's silly to think about now, but when you're that young, you're very impressionable.
reaction to seeing it is a mark of how decent the storytelling is, at least in my opinion. The original creepypasta describes the image, smile.jpg, causing strange symptoms in anyone who views it, from anxiety to outright insanity. The only way to stop it is
There's
to
that
pass the
too.
image along to someone else, ridding yourself of the burden but cursing someone innocent. Those who have seen the image and aren't affected, i.e. every reader, are cleverly explained as having only seen a copy of the image. Only the original cursed smile.jpg affects viewers. Honestly, believe it or not, I actually really like Smile Dog. It's surprisingly well written. It pretty seamlessly incorporates classic internet tropes into the story, for example the image spreading through 4chan and having to forward the image to others in a chainmail-esque fashion, and the story manages to make this stupid photo of a dog cheesing into something genuinely eerie, which is a feat in and of itself. I mean, look at this. Have you ever just stopped to look at the image itself? SCP Foundation.
It scared
The SCP
me.
Foundation originally began
Man.
as a post on 4chan's paranormal board X. The post was formatted as a confidential file detailing a creature known only as SCP-173, a large concrete statue which had to be observed at all times as it would violently attack anyone who wasn't looking at it. SCP stood for Secure, Contain, Protect, since it was the Foundation's job to secure and contain strange and often dangerous creatures and entities and protect the population. The post was short and sweet, but the unique formatting opened the doors for other users to create their own SCP files and create their own creatures and entities for the Foundation to face off against. With the number of SCP posts quickly rising, a dedicated SCP wiki was created, allowing anyone to create and submit their own articles to add to the SCP canon. The in-universe lore began to expand as users began to weave in their own interpretations and stories to explain the Foundation, its history, and its employees. Some of the most iconic SCPs include SCP-682, or the Hard-to-Destroy Reptile, which is a giant lizard with a burning hatred of mankind who must be kept in a vat of acid to stop it escaping and wreaking havoc. There's SCP-096, or Shy Guy, a tall, gaunt figure with pale skin who is docile and calm until someone views its face, at which point it will become agitated and viciously hunt down the person who saw it. Even if they're on the other side of the planet or deep under the ocean looking at a photo or video of it, it will hunt them down. SCP-1981, referred to as Ronald Reagan Cut Up While Talking, is a videotape of Ronald Reagan delivering his Empire of Evil speech, except every time the video is played back, the speech deteriorates into a new string of gibberish intercut with disturbing quotes and predictions of future events, and Reagan begins to suffer from mysterious cuts and lacerations. And then there's SCP-3008, also known as the Infinite IKEA, which is pretty much what it says on the tin, a seemingly endless IKEA with no discernible exit, with faceless employees who will attack inhabitants during the night. As you can probably tell, SCPs are incredibly varied, with all manner of strange objects, creatures, and locations being kept in containment, and that number is growing every day. Naturally, being such a huge and successful collaborative writing project, there are countless stories, videos, pieces of fan art, and video games based on the SCP Foundation. And despite a few dramas and scuffles over the years, the Foundation and its many contributors are still going as strong as ever. Ben Drowned. Ben Drowned, created in 2010, is one of the earliest and most influential ARG creepypastas out there. It tells the story of a haunted cartridge of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, which is haunted by the spirit of a boy named Ben. Originally posted on 4chan, the OP would retell the story of his experience playing through the game, recounting various creepy glitches and strange pieces of dialogue, accompanied with photos and videos of his gameplay. Ben Drowned began as a simple creepypasta, but as it boomed in popularity, the later arcs began incorporating more ARG gameplay elements, with players interacting with in-game characters through various websites as well as collaboratively puzzle solving. The second arc took the story from a relatively basic tale of a haunted game acting weird and creepy to a far more grand, sweeping narrative about a doomsday cult stuck in a time loop. The third arc, which was released in 2020, follows a new character called Sarah who's trying to free the trapped souls of the characters within the game. Ben Drowned was one of the earliest creepypasta stories / ARGs to heavily incorporate photos and videos. In an Arcade Attack interview with Alexander Hall, the creator of Ben Drowned quotes, "Back in 2010, I think Slenderman was the only other creepypasta that was incorporating visual evidence alongside its written text. This gave the story and Ben Drowned a more grounded and reality feel and allowed the viewer to have an easier time suspending their disbelief. It also helped that back then there weren't that many people aware of how in-depth you could actually modify a Nintendo 64 ROM with GameShark coding tricks and some clever video editing, which I think worked in Ben Drowned's favor. Needless to say, Ben Drowned was ahead of its time and went on to influence countless horror ARGs and creepypastas, including iconic works like Petscop and Catastrophe Crow. Mouse.avi. Once again, I'm going to be really quick with this one because YouTube doesn't like it when you talk about which is fair enough. Mouse.avi is another very early and pretty influential lost episode creepypasta alleging the existence of a cursed episode of Mickey Mouse which causes anyone who views it to mick their mouse. I don't know. The video supposedly depicted a simple loop of a somber Mickey Mouse walking, which became more and more distorted and disturbing both visually and through audio, with gurgling and screaming sounds playing throughout. The creepypasta ends with the author imploring readers to try and find the lost footage, which resulted in many fake stories of internet denizens finding the footage, as well as fan-made Mouse.avi videos on YouTube, which I'm pretty sure fooled many a gullible child in the early to mid-2010s. Probably including myself, I'll admit it. Marble Hornets. Marble Hornets is an online horror web series which was posted a few days after the original Slenderman creepypasta was created on Something Awful. The web series uses the Slenderman mythos to weave its own found footage horror tale of a man trying to find out what happened during the production of an unfinished student film called Marble Hornets. He gets a hold of the raw footage from the production and uploads them to YouTube as entries where he discovers that the cast and crew of the film were stalked by a mysterious and malevolent creature that they call the Operator, who is obviously the Slenderman stand-in. I mean, he's a tall, faceless guy who uses proxies to do his bidding. It's Slenderman. It's just Slenderman. The series gained a huge amount of popularity with over 100 million views in total and 87 entries, not to mention various side channels and sequel series. A Marble Hornets movie was even produced called Always Watching a Marble Hornets Story, though the reception was overwhelmingly negative. Marble Hornets was super influential in the creepypasta and particularly the ARG space. The found footage format and real-time updates were inventive for the time, and the way that various accounts and channels would post in character as characters from the series would go on to become an ARG staple. As of 2023, no new video content has been released, but a Marble Hornets comic series is still in the works, with the 4th issue having been released in March of 2023. The Expressionless. The Expressionless was a creepypasta written by author T.J. Lee under the username IvySir in 2012. It recounts the supposedly true story of a bizarre mannequin-like woman who stumbled into an ER covered in blood and clutching a kitten in her mouth, which was lined with razor-sharp teeth. Her mouth, not the kitten. In retrospect, I realized the way I phrased that sentence sounded odd. She was taken in for treatment but began fighting the doctors and nurses, horrifying them with her seemingly superhuman strength and violence. As one doctor shakily asked what she was, she replied, "I am God," before massacring everyone in the hospital. Conveniently, there was one nurse who lived to tell the tale and creatively dubbed the woman the Expressionless. The story is often accompanied by this image to illustrate what she looked like. This creepypasta is short and by today's standards pretty basic, which even the author himself admits, but it got popular just by merit of getting on the ground floor of the early 2000s creepypasta craze. And that's the end of the Creepypasta Iceberg Part 1. This entry covered all the basics, all the classics, all the most iconic, silly early creepypastas, which are kind of all my...
Now chat, I'm gonna admit something. When I was younger, and still now, as much, I would not read creepypastas because I didn't like reading. It's the main reason why I never really got so much into Homestuck, because I didn't want to read it, because I didn't like reading. And I knew Homestuck had a lot of words. So, I would just watch like those videos where people would read creepypastas, pretty much like a audiobook in a sense, like those old YouTube like channels that would read creepypastas for you. And I think having that instead scared me more, because of course they like took it really serious, they were very like quiet about it, and they talked like, and they had scary music. But like, I think if I like read it on my own time, I think I wouldn't have been like as terrified. I think I would just be like, oh, this is kind of dumb. But because I like listened to someone tell the story and like they're trying to really ham it up as scary, I think it affected me, because I was like, whoa, this is really scary. But you know, chat, but you know. But that's one video. Let's see what else we can look at with our big old eyes. We could do the old nostalgia. We could do that one.
We're currently going through a bit of an internet horror golden age, and while nowadays YouTube is filled with complex ARGs, masterful horror series, and 10-hour analysis videos, it wasn't always like
I'm gonna
this.
keep it like this for
Early
now, because I
YouTube
know I'll
horror
have to
was a lot
skip
different to the kind of horror that we see
the ad
today,
that's
mostly
gonna come
because
up.
at that time it was so new,
So
so
bear with me
groundbreaking, and
when
so
it's this small.
unknown. It was so new, in fact, that a lot of people didn't even
electronic captions.
classify it as horror. Instead, the ever-growing subgenre of weird and creepy YouTube videos and
Let's
series
give it a second
came to
chat.
be known as the weird side of YouTube, because generally you didn't go searching for this kind of content on YouTube. It found you, and then you'd go down an endless rabbit hole of bizarre and creepy
Chat.
videos. From little babies,
If you're not lurking,
there is nothing to the classic.
what was your favorite creepypasta when you were younger?
So today I wanted to revisit the weird side.
Which
of
one
YouTube,
scared
to look into their
you?
bizarre backstories and how they've influenced the kind of horror that we see on the site today.
If you did look at creepypastas. Some people may be normal.
A huge thank you to Honkai Star Rail for
No ad. No ad. Anyway. Ad's over. Video time.
YouTube was launched in 2005, and back then it was a very different place, namely because the internet itself was a very different place. Even though the internet had technically existed since the 80s, but more realistically for most people since the 90s, it still felt pretty new by the time that Y2K rolled around and didn't kill everybody. It was a period of discovery and establishment for the internet. Some of the biggest websites in the world were launched during the 2000s, some of the most iconic subcultures and groups were formed, and a lot of things that are still popular staples on the internet today were popularized during the 2000s, including internet horror as a genre. Early internet horror was far less prolific than it is is today. Back in the 2000s and even the 2010s to an extent, internet horror was far less common and therefore much scarier. You gotta remember that back then internet users didn't approach things with the same skepticism that we do today, often just taking ridiculous, outlandish things at face value. Actually, we still do that today. So have we learned anything? No. My point is, if your friend linked you a creepy website or a spooky video popped up on your recommended, you weren't going to approach it under the assumption that it was an interactive ARG mystery or an unfiction horror story created for YouTube essayists to analyze. Because back then, those didn't really exist, at least not in the way that we know them today. The internet horror genre, especially on YouTube, was far more likely to be something that you accidentally kind of just stumbled on, and that made it feel far more terrifying, far more unknown, and sometimes even far more real. Thus, the weird side of YouTube was coined as a term to describe those times we'd fall a bit too far down a YouTube recommended rabbit hole to find wonderfully spooky, weird, and off-putting videos. Don't get me wrong, a large percentage of these videos were trash. 90% of the time it would be a terrible Windows Movie Maker list of the top 10 scariest things found on beaches always using this photo, or top 5 horrifying ghost encounters caught on camera with giant blaring red circles and arrows, you know, just in case you didn't see the huge photoshopped ghost that took up half of the frame. But among the piles of clickbaity trash, there were iconic, legendary videos that broke new ground in the internet horror space and paved the way for a lot of what we see today. Let's revisit these nostalgic pieces of internet history now, and obviously a trigger warning for spooky imagery in case that is something that disturbs you.
Hear that, chat? If there is something that is scary, please make sure you look away.
The very first thing I think of is Scary
Please
Car
do.
Commercial, and you probably do too. It was one of the most iconic early horror
Because I don't want
videos
you
on
to accidentally
YouTube,
get
though
disturbed.
calling it horror might be a little bit of a stretch. The thing about the Scary Car Commercial is you very rarely ever just stumbled onto it in the wild. Most of the time it was shown to you by friends, and that's how I personally encountered it as well. My friends were like, hey, watch this video and keep a really close eye on the car, like really focus in and just follow the car. And so, like the gullible fool that I was, I watched the car wind down this peaceful country road accompanied by relaxing music until boom, jump scare. A generic zombie suddenly pops up accompanied by an extremely loud screaming noise, and for a lot of kids, including myself, this was their first ever internet jump scare. The video currently sits at 20 million views thanks in large part to how popular it became as a prank. Early YouTube was filled to the brim with shaky Nokia videos of people showing this video to their friends, family, teachers, and co-workers to capture their hashtag hilarious response as they screamed or punched their monitor or jumped out of their seat. The screamer genre had gone to become extremely popular in the wake of Scary Car Commercial, with tons of other innocent looking videos intercut with sudden loud noises and jump scares popping up on YouTube. Pun intended. Obviously it was super awesome and funny, and everyone really enjoyed having to walk on eggshells whenever they logged onto the site, because like 46% of their recommended videos would secretly be annoyingly loud, startling jump scares. It was awesome. We loved it. But where did this infamous screamer spawn from exactly? Well, it was uploaded by a user called Kettlesticks in October of 2006, but Kettlesticks did not in fact make the video. It was originally a German TV advertisement. Yes, this thing actually aired on TV for multiple years, for a coffee brand called K-Fee. In the YouTube version, the video ends with a heartbeat sound and text that reads, "Now go change your shorts and get back to work," but this was edited in by Kettlesticks. The original commercial version reads, "You've never been so wide awake," followed by the logo for K-Fee coffee, so essentially the ad was trying to mimic the sudden rush of adrenaline that you get from a lovely caffeinated K-Fee beverage. There's a whole expansive genre of cursed/haunted/disturbing commercials and PSAs that we're going to talk about in a little bit, but this was one of the earliest examples of both a cursed commercial and a viral screamer video, which weirdly makes it a pretty important piece of historical media for the site that gives us a lot of context as to how these subgenres were forming in the early days. We can acknowledge that and the fact that the video was annoying as shit, you know. Two things can coexist at the same time. Also, fun fact, the location of the Scary Car Commercial road, which had long been a mystery, was finally discovered in January of 2023 by none other than Geo Rainbow, because, you know, if anyone was gonna find it, it was definitely going to be him. Turns out the road is in California and looks drastically different now, unfortunately having lost all of its lush greenery. Turns out the true jump scare was climate change. Another early and extremely formative piece of horror media was that of username 666. The video uploaded by user Nana825763 in February of 2008 shows someone, presumably Nana themselves, adding 666 to the end of the site's URL and hitting search. At first nothing happens, but as they continue to refresh the page, it begins to devolve, becoming more pixelated and distorted, with stark black and red colors beginning to bleed onto the page. After a number of refreshes, a channel called 666 finally pops up.
Chad, I just
It's
realized something.
disturbing, covered in fleshy red textures with thumbnails
Yep,
depicting
I forgot
faces and shadowy figures.
to shill
Videos begin
in the
playing, depicting
Discords
pulsating
again.
organisms, and the page becomes more
Oh.
and more glitchy and broken as the video goes on.
No
Fans are
wonder.
unable to even shut off
I
the
had a
computer.
nagging
This
feeling. I
video,
was like, I
which
feel like
currently
I'm
sits at over
forgetting.
17 million views, was a phenomenon and genuinely convinced large swaths of people that it was real footage. User 666 became something of a modern day virtual Bloody Mary, with
There we
kids
go.
at sleepovers around the globe
There we go,
typing
chat.
666 into the URL.
Only an hour in and I failed my streamer job. Oh.
That obviously user 666 was not real, and it was actually just a really impressive piece of art,
Awesome.
especially for its time. The original video was made for a Japanese video
X
sharing
Ninja
site
Boy
called
B
Nico Nico
I
Doga, or
M
NNB,
B
and
O.
was originally called A Cursed Video in Nico Nico. It was made as part of /05, an online flash movie festival, and is noticeably different from the viral YouTube video. It's much longer, clocking in at 7 minutes instead of 4, contains a wider variety of visuals, and obviously is based around a Cursed Nico Nico page instead of a YouTube channel. Nana has come to be widely respected and acknowledged in the online horror space, not only for user 666, but for the wide variety of horror videos, images, and animations that he's posted to 2chan and his website during the early 2000s. He's currently working on a super cool haunted PS1 style game with an undecided title, and while information about the game is extremely vague, from the images that we've been shown so far, it looks extremely good. Basically, instead of being a real urban legend, username 666 ended up being something far cooler. One piece of art in a rich tapestry of 2000s internet horror art by this one incredibly talented and influential artist. Without his work, internet horror as we know it likely wouldn't be the same. In April of 2006, not long after YouTube itself had launched, a user called David Earl uploaded a video titled Dining Room, or There Is Nothing. The video, which currently sits at over 9 million views, depicts a pale greyish woman with long red hair and a white dress sitting at a dining room table. She says something unintelligible to the camera before falling headfirst into her bowl of soup as the camera zooms out and shows the interior.
Actually, hold on, chat. There's something I want to do.
Outside the window. The video then rewinds to the start and the woman once again speaks. When the video was first uploaded, it wasn't uncommon to see re-uploads with titles like Real Cursed Video or Don't Watch, Video from Hell, often with some sort of cliched urban legend attached to it, like the woman in the video would drag you to hell if you watched it at midnight, or if you watched it you'd be cursed to go to hell when you die. Which, I mean, I guess it could be true, it's not like I've been able to verify that, so... Anyway, the usual rumors about how haunted and cursed the video was aside, again, this was just another example of a really impressive piece of horror art. The grainy low quality of the film adds tremendously to the forbidden old found footage vibe, and the set, acting, and effects all work together incredibly well to make something that's unnervingly beautiful and aesthetically pleasing despite the unsettling content. On his blog, artist David B. Earl reflects on There Is Nothing, quote, "Of all the films I have made, perhaps the most obscure one has had the largest impact. Dining Room, or There Is Nothing, instantly went viral in the pre-YouTube days with more than 5 million downloads. Since then it has been viewed in excess of 10 million times and usually appears in any top 10 lists of creepy or scary videos.
Also, chat, as a reminder, if you are new here, please make sure to read the rules, and if you're below the age of 18, I'll have to ask you to leave or you will be banned. These streams are for mature audiences only.
End and no real sense of where the beginning and end actually are. This piece was inspired by a personal paradoxical desire for empirical proof that there is nothing on the other side of life. I wanted to blur the distinction between the two states and to state the paradox by showing someone that is coming back from life or death and denies its existence, thereby fulfilling the paradox. Speaking of videos that were taken out of context to spread outlandish urban legends, let's talk about I Feel Fantastic. Now, usually I like to think of myself as a bit of a skeptic when it comes to videos like this, but I can't even lie, I completely bought into all the ridiculous and outlandish rumors that surrounded this one when I was younger. embarrassingly. I Feel Fantastic is a short 2.5-minute video of an android standing in a house singing the words "I feel fantastic" in a robotic voice. She's made to look like a human woman with short blonde hair and a sweater, and as she sings, the video is intercut with shots
This
of her
video
sitting
also
down
really
in a
scared
blank
me.
outfit
Ah,
and
fuck,
long
I
meandering
forgot I
shots of a
froze.
random
Ah,
field.
chat.
While the original upload by YouTube user CreepyBlog
There you go,
in
chat.
early 2009
This
had
video
just
scared
hit
me
the
when I was
boundaries of
younger.
a mysterious copyright strike. It allegedly reached over 24 million views.
I really
before
did
was
not like it
removed.
because it
Clearly,
really
it had
scared
an
me.
incredibly widespread impact on early YouTube, and I'm sure at this point you can imagine how crazy the hearsay and urban legends got. One
Now
of
I
the most
love it.
popular and
It's great.
convoluted theories, and the
When
one
I was
that
younger,
personally brought
scared me
into, was
shitless.
that the original uploader was a serial killer, and these videos were cryptic hints towards his murders. The android was some sort of effigy to one of his victims, dressed up in their clothes, and the field featured in the video was the location where he buried the bodies. Another common and similarly outlandish theory was that this malevolent android had gone rogue and killed its creator, with very little evidence to support the theory other than the fact that OP had gone radio silent since the video's upload. I kinda misled you though, because the original poster was not actually CreepyBlog in 2009, but a man called Tom Bergeron, but no relation to the guy who hosts America's Funniest Home Videos, all the way back in 2004. The android in the video, as he explained in both the description and his own GeoCities site, was called Tara and was created as early as 2001. Bergeron initially created her as a prototype with basic functions such as moving, talking, and following preset scripts, though she could also be remote controlled live. Bergeron claimed that she could be used for a variety of purposes such as research, display for attractions like theme parks and museums, security, or even just home use. I Feel Fantastic is actually just a short snippet from a much longer Android singing showcase / demo DVD that Bergeron created in 2004 and made available for purchase. Though the GeoCities page suggests that Bergeron was planning to sell Tara, as far as I can tell there was never any update to the page to indicate she'd been
Sorry,
sold,
chat.
so
I'm
who
doing
knows
my
where she is
self-care
now.
stims.
So in reality, I Feel Fantastic
Cracking my
is just an
fingers,
out of
stretching my
context snippet from an
hands, my
Android singing
wrist,
demo
all that
for
good
prospective
stuff.
buyers, and the original uploader is just a guy who really likes robotics and wanted to share his creation with the world. To be fair, yeah, the video is pretty creepy with the low quality of the grainy footage, the weird out of place shots, the somewhat unnerving appearance of the android, and of course the singing, which combined with the discordant backing track sounds pretty eerie. But at the end of the day, it's just someone's passion project, and honestly no wonder Tom Bergeron left the internet after thousands of people began flocking to his videos to accuse him of being a murderer. It's actually really sad in my opinion, and a good reminder that while internet horror and sleuthing and theorizing can be really fun, it's really important to fact check first before dragging innocent parties into something like this, especially when the accusations are so serious. It's notable that in recent years a lot of people have returned to the video with a much more positive outlook, complimenting the creator on his craft and commenting that they actually like Tara's singing. Wherever the android is now, I hope she's doing well and still feels fantastic. Now for an
Sparkle
actual
on.
mystery that isn't just hearsay and exaggerated rumors, though it does have its fair share of those. Blank Room Soup. Originally uploaded with the title Freaky Soup Guy in November of 2005, the video depicts a man in a blank, empty room hunched over a bowl of soup, eating it while crying. His face is covered by a black censor bar to hide his identity. Soon two figures enter the room with large cartoonish costumes and bobble-headed masks. They begin to pat him on the back as if to comfort him before the video ends. As one commenter put it, "I hate being bothered by pop vinyls while I'm eating soup too." So what the hell was up with this video? The original upload got over 1 million views, and subsequent re-uploads got even more, leading people to wonder who, what, why, when, where, and if the guy in the video was even okay. Was this fake, some sort of performance art, a prank, or maybe, just maybe, this was a video from the depths of the dark web. The leading theory that formed around this video was that the man eating soup had been kidnapped and his wife killed and turned into soup, the very soup that he was eating in the video. That's why he was so hunched over and looked so tearful and distressed, meanwhile the masked figures leered over him, feigning comfort to mock him. This theory was backed up when 3 further videos were uploaded of these masked figures, including one where they appear to be in the process of kidnapping a bound victim. But where the story diverges from the previous ones that we've talked about is that it wasn't some easily explainable piece of horror art or an ARG or anything. We have to actually dig a little bit deeper to find out what is going on here. The bobble-headed mascot seen in the video were created by famous animator, artist, and all-around creative guy Raymond S. Percy. He's directed several episodes of The Simpsons and was a sequence director on The Simpsons movie. He's storyboarded on Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen and provided speaking roles for several Disney movie characters. With credits on so many big properties and an extensive work history with Disney, it's fair to say that he's pretty successful, but one of his lesser-known projects was a character and performance called Ray Ray. Rainbot, a creator on YouTube who makes horror and true crime videos, reached out to Raymond to figure out what exactly was going on and why his costumes had featured in such a strange and disturbing video. Raymond claimed that while performing the Ray Ray act at a club called the Key Club on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood, almost all of the Ray Ray costumes and props had been stolen from the dingy, unlocked RV that they had been stored in behind the club. He also confirmed that he had initially received the video attached to an email and he had been the one to originally upload it to YouTube to show his friends and colleagues just how weird it was. Rainbot ended the video on an inconclusive note, stating that since Raymond Percy himself had no idea where the video came from and the mystery was over a decade old, it was likely that it would never be solved. A few years after this video, another one by the channel Super Horror Bro came out. This video was a lot more sensationalized, pushing the angle that this was some deep web mystery and sharing the account of a random internet horror theorist called Enigma. You know, very clever, who claimed that he had gotten in contact with the person who stole the costumes and made the video, and that they claimed that they wanted to make some big statement about capitalism corrupting art or something. This thief also claimed that he was the one who talked with Rainbot, not Raymond Percy, since he had hacked into all of his accounts. This whole story threw a huge spanner in the works, and personally I actually find it really annoying. Like, this Enigma character never provided any solid proof that the person that he talked to wasn't just fake or a troll, and his claims were kind of just taken at face value, which is crazy. Basically, screw off Enigma, your story's legitimacy is doubtful, and you should not have been used as a primary source. Aside from these two videos though, information on Blank Room Soup has been extremely scarce, and at this point most people have just shelved it as a dark web mystery or a snippet from a Red Room video. But there's one other theory that's emerged which I think is far more likely. It's Stolen Babies. Which is the name of a band, by the way, don't worry. So Stolen Babies is an experimental rock band with a very distinctive steampunk Victorian clown kind of aesthetic, and they've performed and taken pictures with the Ray Ray costumes on numerous occasions, including one where they're being tied up and fake abducted by them. This is because the lead singer, Dominique Lenore Percy, is the sister of Raymond Percy, and they've collaborated many times, including incorporating the Ray Rays into performances and photo shoots. This isn't the only connection though. In one of the Blank Room Soup videos, we can see one of the Ray Rays kidnapping a bound figure, and this bound figure very, very heavily resembles Gil Sharon, another member of Stolen Babies. Comparing it to this specific photo shoot of the band, the red jacket, black hat, dark reddish glasses, and pale white face makeup are literally identical to the point that it makes me think the video and these photos could have even been taken on the same day. In fact, I have a strong suspicion that they literally were. These three images are all part of the same photo shoot by Pixie Vision Productions, a photography service in the LA area, and they contain three props: a large oversized cartoon prop gun, rope, and two of the Ray Ray costumes. Not only does the video feature a figure heavily resembling Gil Sharon from this photo shoot, but it also features rope and two Ray Ray costumes. Coincidence? Pretty unlikely in my opinion. As for the original iconic Blank Room Soup video though, it's basically impossible to tell who the crying soup guy is. If it was a member of the band, they would have had to take off their makeup and elaborate outfit, which Gil Sharon did not do, making it slightly less likely but still possible. It also could have simply been a member of their crew or a friend. But even if Stolen Babies were behind the video, what was the motivation? Why would they make something like this? And the answer is, well, Stolen Babies are kinda weird. They're a pretty eccentric band, dressing up in extreme makeup and outfits and putting on very unique and sometimes odd performances. In my opinion, making a weird fake snuff film with cartoon characters as the abductors is absolutely within their wheelhouse, particularly because they have so many other examples of photo shoots with the Ray Rays where they imply violence or some other dark theme. If this is true, Raymond himself may have played a far more active role in this mystery than he's let on in the past. Not only is he related to a member of Stolen Babies, but he himself is no stranger to elaborate projects and performance art both online and in real life, as evidenced by the Ray Ray character itself as well as some of his other work. Some of Raymond's original uploads of the video on sites like Metacafe and Dailymotion have descriptions like, "A clip of people who look like us doing something we would never do. Promise. What's happening in this clip and why do these people look like us?" This reads to me more like lighthearted joking or trolling or like an in-joke between friends rather than something genuinely serious. So, does Blank Room Soup have a case closed, 100% satisfactory, tied in a bow conclusion? Definitely not. There are still tons of questions and we don't really have a definitive answer yet. But in my personal opinion, I think it was basically a joke/prank conducted by Raymond and his sister with the help of the Stolen Babies crew. Maybe it started as an in-joke and then when the video blew up and people began taking it super seriously, they got too embarrassed to admit that it was just a prank. Or maybe they liked the mythos that surrounded the video and didn't want to ruin everyone's fun. But at the end of the day, that's just my own personal theory, and it's still 100% possible that Raymond and Stolen Babies had nothing to do with the video and it's an authentic internet mystery. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think though. Definitely let me know what your theories are in the comments and where you think this video came from. For some reason, one of the biggest genres of content on 2010's YouTube was compilations of quote-unquote cursed commercials. I mentioned that sort of bottom-of-the-barrel top 10 list format earlier, and these were very much that. Most of the time they were like 10 or 15 commercials edited back to back in Windows Movie Maker with the title of the ad coming up in Comic Sans if you were lucky, and by gum we ate it up. The definition of curse tended to be pretty loose in these videos since most of them were just vaguely creepy advertisements, actually most often PSAs. Public service announcements campaigning against things like drugs, drink driving, violence, etc. tend to be pretty grave and serious in tone, and a lot of the time they'll use shock or even scare tactics. Naturally, they're pretty creepy, you know, one minute you're an innocent kid watching Cat Dog in the morning, and the next minute some really serious shit is popping up on your screen, often using really unsettling or even grotesque imagery to scare you out of, like, smoking marijuana or something. But regardless of how creepy they are and how off guard they catch you while you're trying to watch Golden Girls reruns or something, they're not actually cursed. That is, unless you're talking about the cursed Kleenex commercial. Released in 1986 and reposted to YouTube in May of 2006, the cursed Kleenex commercial was one of the earliest examples of a viral cursed commercial and very likely introduced many internet denizens to the concept for the first time. The video depicts a woman dressed all in white interacting with a baby dressed up as a Japanese ogre. The woman takes a Kleenex from the box, letting it fly away as the Kleenex logo pops up and the ad ends. Throughout the entire video, this haunting melody plays, a woman's voice singing out in a somber tone with no backing instrumentals or music, just her own melancholy voice. It's not exactly the scariest commercial ever, you know, it's not exactly the kind of thing that I would imagine would have Kleenex boxes flying off the shelves, but it's not the most horrific thing I've ever seen. But no, not only was this commercial super scary and terrifying, it was also haunted, #real, #not clickbait. People claim that the song was actually a German curse, which translated to die, die, everyone is cursed and will be killed. People also claim that anyone who watched the full commercial would die, and a video posted in 2013 by YouTuber Shrouded Hand depicting the video becoming distorted at midnight fueled these rumors even further. Even after the commercial was pulled due to complaints, the legend persisted, claiming that the woman and the baby had died or that the entire cast and crew had befallen some horrible fate. Like many urban legends on the internet though, it sounds super scary and serious on the surface level, but once you dig a little bit deeper, it's a pretty easily debunked myth. The reason that I couldn't play you that creepy Kleenex baby music is because it's copyrighted by a company called Cherry Red Records who actually own the song. It's called It's a Fine Day and was written by the poet Edward Barton and performed by his girlfriend Jane Lancaster. It was meant to be performed as a sort of spoken word poem song thing, thus the lack of instrumentals or backing tracks and the mysterious haunting performance. I honestly have no idea where the German curse rumor came from since the song is clearly sung in English with English lyrics, so the whole it translates to everyone is cursed thing doesn't really track since you can't translate English into more English. While it is true, according to Atlas Obscura, that the ad was pulled in Japan due to complaints about its unsettling nature, it was never cursed or haunted, and neither the actress nor the baby perished in any commercial-related accidents. Another advertisement which was shared around early YouTube was This Is a Special Time, also known as the Little Baby's Ice Cream ad.
I eat little baby's ice cream. It keeps me young. It keeps me light on my feet. I spring from activity.
That one also always creeped me out.
My job.
I hated it. It's still, I still really don't like it.
One entry in those aforementioned top creepiest commercial and PSA's videos, and tons of YouTubers took the footage and edited it to be even more creepy, adding shadows and distortion and creepy music and ooh. Naturally, with the internet being The internet rumors swirled about the video being haunted or cursed or possessing the power to kill whoever watched it. And while I understand why these rumors spawned, I mean, yeah, the ad is pretty creepy, it was actually just incredibly effective viral marketing. See, Little Baby's Ice Cream was a small ice cream company based in Philadelphia whose whole shtick was wacky ice cream flavors like pizza, everything bagel, chipotle chocolate, cucumber dill, balsamic banana. You get the idea, it was hipster ice cream for hipsters. But being a small company, they didn't really have a super big budget for advertising, only around $3,500. In an interview with LBB Online, Doug Garth Williams, the man who directed the commercial, said, quote, "The reason the owners approached me in the first place was that they knew if they gave me freedom on this project, I would give them a concept that would stand out and have a good possibility of going viral on a tight budget. During casting, I was paying careful attention to the eyes. Based on how I planned to shoot the film, I knew that the eyes would really stand out. The actor, Asa, had these really piercing, distinctive eyes. The basic idea of the scene was that the character was literally giving up an important part of themselves in pursuit of the incredible sensation that devouring their own ice cream body provides. It's pretty twisted, but they are actually lobotomizing themselves as the ad proceeds. As they eat, their original sense of self decreases and the compulsive drive to consume their own delicious ice cream body grows." Gotta respect the dude for putting this much thought into the psyche of his ice cream monster. The company never expected for the video to take off as much as it did, but obviously it did, currently sitting at over 19 million views. It just goes to show that while creepy advertisements were, and honestly still are, a pretty popular genre of internet horror, often the stories behind them turn out to be far more interesting than the videos themselves. And it also goes to show that if someone on the internet tells you that a video is cursed, it's definitely not cursed. Many of the most popular horror series and ARGs on YouTube today are animated, hand-drawn, or even puppeted, and this trend absolutely has roots in early YouTube horror spaces. One of the most famous examples is Salad Fingers. Released on YouTube in May of 2007, the animated short runs just under 2 minutes and tells the tale of Salad Fingers, a long-fingered green thing who really likes spoons. Yes, that's the plot of the short. Salad Fingers likes rusty spoons in a really weird way. He goes into a house, asks a random kid for spoons, and that's about it. It was originally released on Newgrounds in 2004 and really reflects that 2000s Newgrounds lit epic random style of humor with short nonsensical plot and weird random dialogue, but despite this it had an incredibly unique style. Even before the first episode of Salad Fingers released, the creator, David Firth, had a substantial library of art and videos, all with this incredibly unique, grimy and gross, yet incredibly striking and dark art style. It was very visceral, and this was on full display in Salad Fingers, and though the animation was pretty rudimentary, the art style was incredibly unique, and the bizarre premise mixed with the creepy, off-putting vibe really caught the attention of Newgrounds users, and subsequently YouTube users when the short was uploaded there several years later. Unlike the previous spooky videos that we've covered, no one tried to take Salad Fingers and weave a tall tale about how it was cursed or haunted, but it still became an absolutely iconic staple on the internet in the early days. It's the kind of video that you'd pull up at like a sleepover or at school to be like, "Hey guys, check out this video I've heard about, it's super weird," and then you'll watch it and you're kind of like confused and brushing it off and kind of nervously laughing like, what even was that? But then you'll kind of sit with this really uncomfortable, unsettled feeling that you can't quite put your finger on.
There we go.
Quite put your salad finger on. The first episode is currently sitting at over 43 million views, and it's spawned 12 more episodes so far, with more in the works according to David Firth. Well, the first video was just a random short with little to no plot. As subsequent episodes came out, a complex plot began to form with subtle hints and symbolism hinting towards a more in-depth and complicated story. Covering the entire chronology and meaning
There
behind
you go.
Salad Fingers would be a whole video or 5 of its own, so I won't go in depth today, especially considering how many other people have covered it at this point. It was pretty infamously covered by Film Theory in 2016, which renewed attention towards the short and inspired tons of people to start making in-depth analysis on it. Salad Fingers had started as more of a joke, a creepy, weird, gross-out video to show friends at school, but over time it developed into so much more. Viewers went from brushing it off as a simple, goofy animation to taking it seriously as a piece of art, weaving the tale together, connecting the dots, and spending hours collaborating with others to put the story together, which is something that I really appreciate about the horror climate today. The genre is taken a lot more seriously. Like, people complain about the oversaturation of the 10-hour Five Nights at Freddy's lore analysis style horror videos, but I would much rather take that over top 10 scariest ghost sightings, top 10 haunted and cursed commercials that will kill you if you watch them, or just in general lazy reposts of horror videos claiming that they're cursed or haunted. Not only was that content just super lazy in general, but I feel like it kind of undermined the artist. You know, horror videos don't have to be haunted or cursed or real to make them scary. They're genuine pieces of art that people put a lot of work into, and you can just think they're cool because they're cool. They don't need to have some sensationalized clickbaity story surrounding them. You can just appreciate them as art. Anyway, rant over. I just feel like it's a really good example of how the internet has really embraced horror in recent years, especially the theory crafting side of it, which in my opinion is really cool. David Firth continued making art and animations all throughout the 2000s and 2010s and is still active today. He's worked on numerous other popular YouTube series and shorts, including 2009's Sock and 2017's Cream, as well as numerous TV shows and projects. I'm glad that he's gotten so much recognition and has had such a successful career, considering how influential his work was and still continues to be online. I can't think of a better video to end this video on than the original Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. After all, the first video was published in 2011 as a simple standalone horror short, and now the entire series of 6 YouTube episodes have well over 100 million views collectively, as well as an actual publicized Channel 4 television series. It's a fantastic example of the old internet and its horror climate growing and evolving over time and tangibly influencing the horror that we see on the site today. I'm not going to get into the entire series or the lore because, you know, I wouldn't want to steal MatPat's thunder or anything, so we're just going to cover the original upload, the one that launched the series into viral popularity in the first place. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared was uploaded in July of 2011 by Becky Sloan and Joe Pelling of This Is It Collective, a film and animation group. The theme of the day here is old internet horror influencing what we see today, and a huge genre that you see almost everywhere today is innocent kids media, but spooky. Now, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared was absolutely not the first to do this. Taking something you'd typically assume to be innocent and sweet and kid-friendly and making it dark is one of the most classic horror tropes out there, and there are countless examples, most notably in the creepypasta genre. I mean, hell, when I was like 7 there were kids singing "I hate you, you hate me, let's get together and kill Barney" on the playground, like, constantly. What I'm saying is, cute kids thing but dark is definitely not new, but DHMIS took this well-worn trope and portrayed it in such a masterful, unique, and visually appealing way that it really helped to repopularize the trope in mainstream media. The short opens on 3 kids show mascot-looking characters, a yellow guy, a red noodly guy, and a bird all sitting at a table looking bored. Suddenly a pad of paper begins singing a catchy song about creativity, getting the 3 to start having fun and thinking creatively. Towards the end of the video, as the song goes on, things get spooky as we see shots of a real heart, a bloody pie, the word death in cut-out letters, and the 3 shaking crazily as the music becomes discordant and the peppy educational song goes off the rails. The short ends with the pad of paper asking them all to agree to never be creative again. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is short and simple, but the gorgeous art direction, amazing set, epic practical effects, lovingly crafted props and puppets, super catchy song, and the combination of hilarity and horror made it stick out for a lot of people, myself included. I remember my first experience with Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared was when I was a lot younger and my sibling showed it to me, and I'm gonna be honest, I honestly don't think that any other piece of media has traumatized me like that one did. I don't even know what it was about it, but that whole day I was so paranoid that I was gonna have nightmares about them that as night began to draw closer, I started like shaking and having hot flashes. I was terrified. Obviously nowadays I can appreciate the sheer artistry of the entire series. It's incredibly impressive, as well as the inherent humor of it, which I think really flew over my head as a kid.
I'm
But
gonna send
back
this
then
to
I was
Luca
not having a good time, and I'm sure
and
that I'm not
see
the
if they
only kid who
approve
was
of
kind of
it.
scarred from watching it. This is another example of a short that absolutely deserved the hype that it got, and I'm so pleased that not only did it become a huge phenomenon on YouTube, but Becky Sloan and Joe Pelling now have a Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared television series airing on Channel 4, which you should absolutely watch. It's genuinely good and really funny, and I hope it gets like a bajillion more seasons because I want there to be more creative and unique shows like this out there. Though many might brush off early YouTube horror as rudimentary or cheap, I honestly couldn't disagree more. It had its fair share of clickbait trash, of course, just as we do today, but as we've seen in this video, a lot of the earliest horror videos on the site were beautiful, masterful, interesting.
Very good video. Let's see, chat. Hmm. Sims video.
It's a wonderfully
Here we go. We'll just do it right here.
The Sim franchise began all the way back in 1989 when Maxis published SimCity.
There we go.
Designed by Will Wright, who was inspired by the complexity of urban planning and design, SimCity allowed players to design, build, and manage their own city, working within the constraints of their budget to expand it and help their citizens thrive. The game was a hit and spawned many successive spin-offs and sequels. And that one from 2013 that we don't talk about. Only a few years after the release of SimCity, Wright lost his home in the Oakland firestorm of 1991. Having to replace all of his belongings and essentially rebuild his life from the ground up gave him the idea for a video game, and he formulated the idea of a quote-unquote virtual dollhouse. Despite the huge success of SimCity and all of the simoleons that it brought them, Maxis weren't too enthusiastic about Wright's new idea. From Game Master, a 2006 article written by John Seabrook, quote, "When Wright took his idea to the Maxis board of directors," Jeff Braun says, "the board looked at The Sims and said, what is this? He wants to do an interactive dollhouse? The guy is out of his mind. Dollhouses were for girls, and girls didn't play video games. Maxis gave little support or financing for the game. Electronic Arts, which brought Maxis in 1997,
That's
was more
done.
enthusiastic. After EA acquired
Let's go back to our
Maxis,
Drawtober
was full
stuff.
speed ahead on Wright's kooky idea, but it wasn't all smooth sailing, as there was actually a lot of internal conflict about the inclusion of same-sex romances in the game.
Close that
When
for now.
programmer Don Hopkins noticed that the prototype implementation of the game didn't support same-sex relationships and would automatically have the kissee slap the kisser if they were the same gender, he wrote a strongly worded critique on the design document reading, quote, "The whole relationship design and implementation, I've looked at the tree code, is heterosexist and monosexist. We are going to be expected to do better than that after the Simcopter fiasco and the lip service that Maxis publicly gave in response about not being anti-gay." Okay, side note, the Simcopter fiasco mentioned here is referencing the time that a developer on Simcopter added an Easter egg where on certain days male Sims would become scantily clad in swim trunks and would kiss each other. He claimed that this was added in as a joke in response to the heterosexism that he witnessed on the Sims team, but Maxis swiftly added a patch to remove the Easter egg and fired the developer. Alright, side note over, back to the quote. "The code tests to see if the sex of the people trying to romantically interact is the same, and if so, the result is a somewhat violent negative reaction, clearly homophobic. We are definitely going to get flack for that. It would be much more realistic to model it by two numbers from 0 to 100 for each person, which was the likelihood of that person being interested in a romantic interaction with each sex. So you can simply model monosexual, heterosexual, which is all we have now, monosexual, homosexual, like the guys in Simcopter, bisexual, non-sexual, Mother Teresa presumably, and all shades in between most of the rest of the world's population. It would make for a much more interesting and realistic game, partially influenced by random factors, and anyone offended by that needs to grow up and get a life, and hopefully our game will help them in that quest. Anyone who is afraid that it might offend the sensibilities of other people, but of course not themselves, is clearly homophobic by proxy, but doesn't realize it since they're projecting their homophobia onto other people. I have to say, seeing someone speak so directly about these issues, especially back in the 90s, is a breath of fresh air. Even today you have so many companies and developers who awkwardly sidestep or business jargon their way through matters of poor representation, but here you have someone just telling it like it is, not caring if they hurt anyone's feelings or offend higher-ups at the company. It's great, and it clearly works since same-sex couples were implemented in a more positive, or at least neutral way. Technically, same-sex couples in The Sims couldn't even get properly married until The Sims 3, but still, it was a step in the right direction, and the game would have aged extremely poorly if they hadn't removed that violent slap reaction. During development, Will Wright read multiple books about architecture and urban design, as well as psychology and the human mind, in order to program the building features as well as The Sims' artificial intelligence. In the 2013 television special How Video Games Changed the World by Charlie Brooker, which is an interesting documentary ruined by the fact that Graham Linehan is in it, Will Wright actually claimed that the game was intended as a satire of consumeristic US culture. Quote, "It was actually meant to be a satire of US culture, and I think most people didn't get that. The promise of the game really in The Sims is that you have all of these objects and each one has little ratings, like the couch will improve your comfort this much. But each one of these objects becomes a ticking time bomb. They can break, they can catch on fire, they can become dysfunctional. And you find out that these objects you're buying to make your sim happy are now making your sim miserable. This also explains why The Sims Sims is the only game in the series with a very clearly defined era. The Sims 2 is vaguely
Also, chat,
2000s and The Sims 3 is vaguely
I just want to say I'm going to try to
2010s
stream
because of the
longer
time
today
periods they were produced in, but The Sims,
because
despite being
I
published in
want to
2000,
be
is a
able
very
to get
clean
more
1960s
hours.
suburban consumerist Americana
And also,
aesthetic. This can be seen
I
in
feel
the
good today.
furniture, clothing, buildings,
I feel
neighborhoods,
pretty
suburbs,
good.
and even the music of the game. And I know I say this about every Sims game because it's true, but the music slaps. Personally, I think the original Sims soundtrack is the best in the entire franchise.
Yay, Luca really liked my commission. Luca was like, I completely forgot about this, and I was like, I know, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
PC game of all time.
I'm a great artist.
Anyway,
If you'd like to
Sims and a whole
support
bunch
me.
of expansion packs and branded partnerships later, and ironically, The Sims is the very picture of capitalism and
like I said,
consumerism
chat,
that
I was
is
really
as far away
depressed,
from its satirical roots as
and
it
I
can get.
just felt like
Sims
doing
is
nothing, but
originally
now
going to be
I'm in a
called
better
Belfast, and
headspace
that's
now.
actually an extremely fitting name out of all the games
I'm
in
on
the
anxiety
franchise. Sims
medicine.
feels the most like looking
It's
into a dollhouse
working.
and playing with the toys
It's
inside.
all good,
In
chat. It's
many
all
ways,
good.
it's the
No
best
worries.
life sim of the series. The
I'm doing
top-down
better.
camera gives the game a more detached vibe that feels more like watching an ant
I
colony
just
than
like
controlling and
slapped my
playing a
arm,
person
like
in
if
an
there's
immersive
muscle
world.
there, but there's
also a
not,
much
because I'm
stronger
really
emphasis on
skinny.
actual architecture and design, clearly inspired by Will Wright's research
I gotta
into the
stop doing
topic, something
visuals
he
where
lost
y'all
his
can't
own
see
in
anything.
fact, interestingly, the original plan for the game was for it to be an architecture simulator solely
I always
dedicated
forget.
to home
I always
building and
forget checking
design.
out to
The
see what
Sims'
I'm
original
doing.
purpose was just to come and judge your home, but it was decided during development that the Sims themselves were actually the most interesting part of the game, so development shifted and it became a life simulator instead. The furniture options in this game are just incredible. I mean, who doesn't love an inflatable neon couch or a vibrating love bed? Oh no. There's also a house tab that allows you to see stats about your Sim's current home, from the number of rooms to the quality of the furnishings to the yard size to the layout itself, with the game emphasizing that just in real life, a convenient home layout is important for Sim's well-being. It's kind of hilarious to me that the developers put so much thought and effort into the home building aspect, because when I played, I would always just end up spamming Rosebud and making like a featureless cube, as well as being, in my opinion, a truer life simulation than a lot of other games in the franchise. It was also a bit more adult, not in the sense that it had inappropriate content or anything, aside from these forum banners maybe. These are just extremely chaotic, but just in the fact that it wasn't meant to be a family-friendly game aimed at kids and teens. It was aimed at a more general, even older audience. It's creepy in a unique way. The other games have scary mysteries and spooky lore sprinkled in on purpose, but in this game the eeriness is just kind of woven into the very code of the game itself. The low poly graphics, the muted colors, and the mishmash of different art styles with the models makes the game look dark and uncanny at times. The tone is also noticeably darker. Notifications about alarming events.
Actually, hold on.
Suddenly, the sound effects and musical
I'm gonna
stakes
stop the
are
video real
jarring, and
quick.
the dialogue is
Don't worry. It'll be back on. But I'm gonna post Luca's commission to Twitter. Gonna post it to Twitter. I cannot spell. Here we go. Commission I did for Luca. Tweet. And then I'll go to my commission post. And do that. There you go. And I'm gonna quote retweet this. go. There we go, there we go, there we go. There we go. Right. That is done. And now we will go back to the video.
Well, it can be pretty harsh. Many simmers over the years have
There we go.
revisited this game and commented on its unsettling nature and dark tone. Though the later games did, of course, have their creepy moments, they feel distinctly sanitized when compared to The Sims, which has an unknowable and almost kind of haunted feel. But enough with all the vagaries, let's actually get into the game and all the weird and wacky details that make it so infamously unnerving yet endlessly fascinating. Compared to the bombastic and bizarre deaths and ghost types of The Sims 2, 3, and 4, kicking the bucket in The Sims is actually pretty tame. Which makes sense, it was only after the first game came out that they could study the gaming habits of players and figure out that, well, most of them were freaks who enjoyed torturing their Sims in various terrifying ways. In later games, death would become such a staple feature that new death types were introduced in every expansion pack, and Simmers would try to collect all of the different ghost types by maiming their Sims in all kinds of wacky ways. However, the first incarnation of The Sims only included starvation, drowning, fire, and electrocution. This isn't to say that the developers didn't dabble in more risque deaths though. In the Make and Magic expansion pack, Sims can be magically turned into a toad, whereupon they can be eaten by a dragon or a cat. In the Superstar expansion, Sims using a skydiving simulator machine will be catapulted into the sky and die if their energy need drops too low. Sims can't enter the machine with low motive, so they need to enter fully rested and then have the entrance blocked off so their motives deplete. Very much a removing the ladder from the pool type situation. But most players ended up stumbling upon the game's creepiest death by complete accident when their Sims contracted a mysterious fatal illness. Early 2000s forum boards were flooded with players asking why their Sims kept falling ill with symptoms of coughing, sneezing, and rapidly declining comfort and energy motives until eventually their Sims would enter a severe coughing fit and die. This was back before the Sims had thousands of game guides and walkthroughs and in-depth articles on every death and Easter egg and mystery, so it really did feel like playing a virtual dollhouse that had become haunted by some mysterious unknowable virus. A few weeks after this mysterious Sim plague had set in, it was discovered that it was actually transmitted to Sims from guinea pigs that lived in dirty cages, and this illness was dubbed guinea pig disease. Very creative, guys. There are 3 ways to cure the disease: keeping the infected Sims home and in bed to keep their energy and comfort motive up, purchasing the forgotten guinea pig painting, or drinking a specific potion from the concoctination station. While this death might sound a little bit tame in comparison to the gruesome fates that Sims would meet in the later games, you have to keep in mind that The Sims really kept players in the dark about a lot of mechanics. There were no on-screen warnings or status alerts to inform you of the fact that your Sim had gotten sick, so many young Simmers assumed that their Sims had caught a simple cold before having to watch on, horrified as they coughed and spluttered and keeled over with no explanation. That hamster disease really freaked me out. I didn't have internet back then, and my friends didn't really like The Sims, so I wouldn't know about secret stuff in the game. My Sim was a guy living alone with his hamster. I cleaned it from time to time, but I guess it wasn't enough. One day my Sim started to cough. It took a second at the beginning, but later he was coughing more and more. I was trying to call for an ambulance or find some sort of medicine, but there was nothing. One day he coughed so much that he couldn't get to work, and a day later, he died. I remember when this happened to my Sim. I wasn't being overly negligent, and I didn't even notice when it bit me. My Sim was coughing, but I figured she was sick and just needed to rest. The next morning she woke up and started coughing hard. I think the speed locked at 1 times and the camera zoomed in on her. I couldn't pause, I just had to watch her keep coughing more and more intensely until she keeled over dead. It was so terrifying. Guinea pig disease, as well as the toad transformation and skydiving deaths, were actually pretty controversial at the time. A quote from a New York Times article titled "Something is Killing the Sims and It's No Accident," published in April of 2000, reads, quote, "The Sims bulletin board was full of lively debate over the secret code. Some players agonized over the loss of game characters that they had spent dozens of hours developing. The characters had taken on the qualities of pets, and their creators reacted with outrage and confusion to the plague. Others defended Mr. Wright and his decision to add secret features to the game. Why some people are making such a big fuss about it is beyond me," a player wrote. "I had a family of 8 who all came down with this thing, and through common sense playing, they all survived quite well and only one even missed a day of work. In a recent telephone interview, Mr. Wright acknowledged that the virus threw a lot of people for a loop, but then most of them got it. The 3 wacky deaths included in the game were seen as secret content, developer jokes, and Easter eggs, and a lot of players were actually unhappy with their inclusion at the time, which is kinda hilarious looking back because nowadays The Sims is well known and beloved for its Easter eggs, and sudden and bizarre deaths are kind of the series' bread and butter. Another franchise staple that is absent in the first game, or at least present in a very early form, are life states, also known as occults. Much like death itself, supernatural life states such as vampires, fairies, and werewolves were a surprise hit with players, and in the future new occults would be added with every expansion pack. The Sims doesn't have life states in the typical sense, aside from regular human, sim, and ghost. Instead, different supernatural creatures are included as temporary transformations and are more like Easter eggs than fully fleshed out life states. The Concatenation Station introduced in Live and Large allows Sims to make potions to reverse their personalities, max out motives, and cure guinea pig disease, but some potions have less desirable effects. Purple potions turn Sims into quote-unquote monsters who will shamble around breaking household items before turning back into humans a few hours later. These monsters bear a striking resemblance to Frankenstein's monster and more generally the zombie life state from future games. Also, as a side note, the Concatenation Station can produce a dark green potion that will create an evil clone of your Sim that will go around performing mean interactions on friends and family and lowering your relationships with them. I don't think evil clone counts as a life state, but it's kind of a horrifying thing to just drop into your game. Like, yeah, clones exist and they're evil and they want to ruin your life. Although, to be fair, if I was a clone, that might be what I would do to my clone self, just like ruin their social lives by being embarrassing. Also introduced in Live and Large is the Genie, though he functions more as an NPC and not a playable life state. Using his magical powers, he can be summoned from a lamp and grant Sims wishes, though more often than not these will backfire horribly. However, this seems to come from a place of sheer ineptitude rather than malice. In the Make and Magic expansion, Sims can learn to use magic, but the words witch and warlock are never used, and magic users will still look like regular old Sims. In Magic Town, Sims can buy eggs that hatch into dragons, which can be kept as super cute little pets, and there are 2 NPCs called Fairy Queen Mara and Vicky Vampirus who appear to be the fairy and vampire occults respectively. However, the main way to turn your Sim into an occult, and the mechanic that likely inspired the more complex life state system in The Sims 2, 3, and 4 was the Beauty and the Beast charm. This spell is able to be cast by magic users and can change the appearance of a Sim to be beastly. These beastly appearances include models that resemble various life states, from vampires to these terrifying realistic rabid werewolves to these really cool early versions of plant Sims. Makes me yearn for a time when plant Sims actually looked like plants instead of whatever this is. Oh my god, I forgot how terrible these looked. The spell isn't permanent and it eventually wears off, but the ability to change your Sim's appearance to be a cryptid is a really cool early prototype for the more complex life states that would come later. This last one isn't technically an occult, but it's so bizarre and never
Here
showed
we
up
go.
in any
Alright.
other game, so I really have to mention the Flamingo Go Dancers. If Sims cast an enchanting spell on a pink flamingo item, they'll come to life as a Sim with hot pink skin and a flamboyant feathery outfit, so yeah, not only do furries exist in The Sims 1, but humanized inanimate plastic flamingo furries also exist. Moving on from life states, I was gonna put a whole section here about glitches, but to be honest, The Sims had surprisingly few of them. The game wasn't perfect or polished to perfection by any means, but compared to the ramshackle spaghetti code in a trench coat masquerading as a game that was The Sims 2 and The Sims 3, which was so badly optimized that it was near unplayable for many people, the first installment is actually pretty stable. But it does have one glitch. One terrifying, horrifying glitch that is a genuine contender for the scariest in the entire franchise. Which is saying a lot when screenshots like this exist. It's known as the upside down head glitch, or more commonly upside down head syndrome, and looks like this. Yes, if a Sim becomes corrupted, their icon will change from an image of their own face to the gaunt face of a woman against a stark black background flipped upside down. Even more bizarrely, the woman's face will change expressions, whereas the regular non-glitch Sim thumbnails are completely static and don't move at all. Seeing this face pop up and start moving during a midnight play session with all the lights turned off would be enough to make any Simmer believe in ghosts, but there's a simple explanation. As explained on the cutting room floor, the upside down head, called Unknown Face in the files, is actually a pre-release character called the Duchess that never made it into the final game. When a Sim's thumbnail is missing, usually the result of missing or corrupted head textures, the game will automatically use unknown face as a replacement image. Dynamic changing expressions for thumbnails were an early feature that ended up getting scrapped early on in development, but somehow snuck in as a glitch. Still, even after knowing all that, if I saw this thing pop up in my game, I wouldn't be sleeping for at least a week.
Sorry,
Actually, I
chat.
never
Someone was
experienced this glitch
just
in my own
honking?
playthroughs of the game, but I really want to know.
I
if
don't know
anyone
why,
did.
but they were like,
If you
"Burp,
experienced the
burp, burp,
terrifying
burp,
upside
burp."
down head glitch,
Like,
please
okay,
leave a comment
damn.
and explain the trauma of that experience. The Duchess isn't the only creepy character though. In fact, the original Sims is filled with weird and sometimes malicious characters that'll harass your Sims and cause all kinds of trouble. For example, the Tragic Clown, one of the most infamous characters in the entire series. If Sims motives drop too low and they also own a painting of the Tragic Clown, Sonny the Tragic Clown himself will spawn in an attempt to make them feel better. However, the clown is extremely depressed and any attempt he makes to cheer Sims up will fail miserably, making Sims' depression even worse. He also can't be asked to leave, so you're effectively stuck with this creepy ghost clown who now lives in your house, following your Sim around while constantly coughing, crying, and draining their motives. If you try to trap the clown in a doorless room to get rid of him, he'll jump through a magic hole to get out. The clown is also supernaturally linked with the painting. If you set fire to it, he'll burn to death, and if you sell it, he'll leave the lot permanently. You can also call clown catchers to capture the tragic clown and remove him from your lot and repossess the painting so he can't come back. But believe it or not, Sonny's story gets even more sinister. While he was absent from The Sims 2, he makes a reappearance in The Sims 3, in a graveyard. The tragic clown is buried in Sunset Valley, having died from drowning. This is an oddity since one of his traits is listed as hydrophobe, and it's almost impossible for hydrophobic Sims to die in this way. From the Sims wiki, quote, "This may imply an unusual cause of death, such as dying from crying, being drowned by others, or developing this trait after his death, which is not possible through normal gameplay." Those nerds who are fully brushed up on their Sims lore and have been paying attention to the timeline may realize that the tragic clown's inclusion in The Sims 3 doesn't make any sense. For those who don't know, The Sims timeline is a little confusing. Canonically, The Sims is the earliest point on the timeline, the original Sims comes next, and The Sims 2 is the most current point on the timeline, with The Sims 4 being set in an alternate universe. It's kind of convoluted and complex, but basically what that means is that The Sims 3 happened before The Sims. So why is the tragic clown deceased in The Sims 3 before appearing fully alive and well in The Sims? There are a few theories. The most grounded theory is that the tragic clown from The Sims 3 is a different character to the one in The Sims. One of his traits in The Sims 3 is excitable, which is very out of character compared to his personality in the original game, and similarly he has a far more cheery and bright appearance compared to this literal portrait of abject misery. This also wouldn't be the first time that a distant relative makes things unnecessarily confusing on the timeline. As we discussed in the Sims 2 video, Agnes Crumplebottom, also known as Miss Crumplebottom, is a distant relative of Mrs. Crumplebottom. They're distinctly different people on different points of the timeline. The other more unsettling theory is that The Sims 3 depicts the tragic clown's origin story. He started off as a normal, cheery, and excitable clown who also happened to be afraid of water. After suffering from some sort of water-related death, whether accidental or planned, he became the tragic clown, forced to walk the mortal earth as a spirit to spread cheer and laughter, but doomed to fail due to his own grief. This would explain why he's constantly crying and coughing, and why he possesses magical qualities such as being intrinsically tied to the painting and being able to teleport through magic holes. Whatever the case, it's clear that there's much more to Sonny's tragic tale than meets the eye. Another creepy NPC that can be encountered is the Obsessed Fan. Fame was introduced in the Superstar expansion pack and allowed Sims to gain popularity and become celebrities. But as we all know, with celebrity status comes fans, and with fans comes stands. If a celebrity Sim with 3 or more fame stars doesn't pay enough attention to their fan base, they'll attract an obsessed fan. Though fan is probably a bit too nice of a word for it, the one I would pick is stalker. They'll stalk your Sim in public and at their home, dig through their garbage, leave black roses on their home lot, and even break into their house to steal awards. They can be shooed away and told off, which will temporarily deter them, but until the Sim's relationship with their fan base increases, the stalker will be a constant creeping presence in their life. This NPC would be reintroduced in The Sims 4 Get Famous expansion, though a bit
Chat?
more toned down. These stands would
I'm
have
gonna
to literally
go,
be invited inside to steal anything rather than just
get
breaking
some
right
food
in,
real
and
quick.
they wouldn't leave creepy offerings
I'm literally
on
just
the
gonna get
wall.
up and go into my
Celebrity
kitchen and
Sims
all
can
that.
also suffer from nervous
But I'm not
breakdowns
gonna
that
move
repeatedly
away from the
fail
video. I'll just put,
opportunities and jobs at
I'll
studio
just put
time,
like a
leaving
big,
them to
like,
enter a catatonic state where their motives
Hold on, chat.
rapidly drop, and this all gets reported in the tabloids. Depressingly realistic. One feature that's unique to the original game are
BRB.
prank calls. Sims
But
can
I'll
receive
be
prank
right
calls
back.
at any
Gonna get some
time,
food to
including in the
eat.
middle of the night. Some are
And
just
yeah.
random and silly, like, do you canoe? The number 3 is very important in your life right now. Your psychic advisor suggests that you work on improving relationships with those closest to you because you'll need them in the next lunar review. We're fixing your phone line. Don't pick up the phone next time it rings. But some are downright horrifying. You have been chosen. They will come soon. The drop-off has been made. You've been warned. The end is near. Make preparations. Your psychic advisor's head has just exploded. Be forewarned. They're coming soon. Maybe you should think twice about opening the door. Imagine playing this game as a child, picking up the phone and seeing this message pop up with absolutely zero context, accompanied by this terrifying mask face. Will Wright is an evil, evil man. Another seemingly innocuous feature that's actually super unnerving is military school. Children have to attend school regularly and get good grades to succeed. If their grade stays at an F for too long, a pop-up will appear that reads, "Your poor grades are putting you in the express line for military school. If your grades do not improve quickly, you may be saluting your superiors in short order." If the child doesn't show up to school the next morning in a good mood or immediately improve their grades before school the next day, another pop-up will appear reading, "You blew it big time, no more second chances for you. Military school is your next stop. We won't be seeing your face around here again, that's for sure." If you're thinking, wow, that sounds ominous, yeah, it is, and it gets worse. The camera will then focus on the child as they change into a military outfit, and a final pop-up will appear reading, "Bye, sob. I'm leaving for military school. Now I'll be polishing gun barrels and saluting superiors while my friends are having fun. If only I'd studied harder." After the child is shipped off to military school, they will literally never be seen again. They're effectively deleted from the game, and there's no way to bring them back, not even as an adult after finishing the school. It's a small detail in the game, but it's really eerie and sad that failing grades can result in your sim child being sent away forever, never to be seen again. And last but certainly not least, this wouldn't be a Sims video unless we talked about burglars. Now in my Sims 2 and 3 videos we touched on burglars and how they were spooky and creepy and the music was horrifying, but let me play you a comparison of all 3 games. The Sims 3 sounds sneaky and almost cartoonish, pretty fitting for a burglar. The Sims 2 sounds a little more alarming, pretty creepy to hear during a late night play session, but again pretty fitting for a burglar. But The Sims... This burglar music is infamously terrifying, with countless stories of Simmers both young and old being traumatized from hearing the horror stinger suddenly blare in the middle of the night. Also, since babies are technically considered items in The Sims, burglars can literally steal them from inside your house. Absolute nightmare fuel. When researching The Sims 2 and 3, most people are surprised to find out just how complex the timeline is and how deep and well established the characters, stories, and locations of the world are. If you go into the original Sims game with this expectation though, you might be a little bit disappointed. The game actually lacks any family descriptions and Sim bios are short to non-existent, meaning there's a lot less information about the characters and what their deals are. There are also relatively few families available to play as, with the game focusing more on creating and building your own rather than dropping into pre-existing families with pre-established dynamics and stories that fit into the wider Sims canon. This doesn't mean that the game is totally devoid of lore though, not at all. Let's start with the neighborhood itself, Neighborhood 1, which is about as bland and generic a name as you can get, but let's dig a little bit deeper. And by dig a little bit deeper, I mean talk about the Goth family, because, and say it with me, it's not a Sims video unless there's copious amounts of Goth family lore. It's truly the Goth's world and we're just living in it. So Gunther and Cornelia Goth, who are Mortimer Goth's parents, and Bella Goth, Goth's in-laws are the founders of Neighborhood 1, as evidenced by Gunther's bio and the fact that one of the streets is called Gunther Goth Highway. In The Sims Unleashed, Neighborhood 1 was expanded and renamed to Old Town, so let's just call it Old Town for the sake of convenience. It's widely believed that Old Town and Pleasantview from The Sims 2 are the same place at different points in time. This is evidenced by the fact that many families from Old Town also live in Pleasantview, for example the Goths, the Pleasants, the Burbs, and the Newbies as deceased Sims. Pleasantview also shares several street names with both Old Town and Downtown, including Sim Lane, Right Way, and Main Street. Finally, the description for Pleasantview in The Sims 2 reads, "A lot has happened in 25 years, but some new faces in town are stirring up rivalries and creating tension for the once happy families. Can anything be done to get the neighborhood feeling good again?" This basically confirms that Pleasantview is Old Town 25 years into the future, but some theorize that there's even more to the story than that. The description for Sunset Valley in The Sims 3 reads, quote, "Before Pleasantview there was Sunset Valley, founded by the Goth family and built up by the Landgrabs to be a quiet, peaceful town." This has led many people to theorize that Sunset Valley is a very early version of Old Town / Pleasantview, but personally I don't really buy it, and here's why. And bear with me because this is going to get confusing because, well, it's The Sims. Gunther's bio states that he founded Old Town, so for all three towns to be the same place, Gunther had to have also founded Sunset Valley. After all, a town can undergo any number of changes over time, but it can only really be founded once. But I don't think that he was the founder of Sunset Valley. There are no specific mentions in that game of Gunther or Cornelia being founders, and Gunther's bio in The Sims 3 reads, quote, "You can tell just by looking at him that Gunther Goth comes from old money, but he doesn't seem arrogant or greedy, just comfortable with the fact that he has been rich all of his life. If Gunther came from old money, it stands to reason that that money came from much older and much wealthier members of the Goth family who likely founded the town. His deceased parents Gretel and Victor are likely candidates. With their wealthier parents, Victor's mega CEO job, and Gretel's living the lap of luxury lifetime wish, it's likely that they, or perhaps even older Goth descendants, founded the town." My personal theory is that Sunset Valley is a different place to Old Town / Pleasantview, but it's probably somewhere close by. One of the main conflicts in Sunset Valley is a rivalry between the three wealthiest families, the Goths, the Landgrabs, and the Altos. Though it's stated that the Goths founded the town, it's also stated that the Landgrabs quote-unquote built it up, and Nancy Landgrab's bio states that Nancy's family more or less founded the town. From these conflicting accounts we can gather that there's an ongoing feud between the two families about who actually founded Sunset Valley, with the Landgrabs swooping in to use their money to build up the town and take credit from the Goths. This, combined with the extremely wealthy Alto family moving into town to cause trouble, may have caused Gunther and Cornelia to use that old money of theirs to move somewhere new and found Old Town. Sunset Valley being a different place to Old Town / Pleasantview would also explain why the Landgrabs don't feature in The Sims at all. If their longtime rivals the Goths moved out of town, that would be the perfect situation for them. Then they could swoop in, take the credit, and run the town as their own without any rivalries going on. Eventually Gunther and Cornelia would pass on, but Mortimer stayed in Old Town and grew his family and his fortune, and over time the town eventually became the Pleasantview that we know and love in The Sims 2. But that's just a theory. I've gotten a lot of comments about how it's really annoying when I do this, and I hate it as much as you guys, but I need you to understand I can't help myself. A game theory. The Goths also have a graveyard in their backyard comprised of 8 graves. There are many members of the Goth family who would be deceased by the time that this game came out, including Victor, Gretel, Simon, Prudence, Lolita, Samuel, Frida, Olivia, Rebecca, and Timaeus, but it's impossible to know who is actually buried there since the graves are all unmarked. Aside from that, there isn't too much in the way of family lore. The Pleasant family are available from the Family Bin, featuring a young Jennifer and Daniel Pleasant. Jennifer would go on to marry John Burb, a member of the playable Burb family, and Daniel would go on to marry Mary Sue Oldie and form the iconic Pleasant family from The Sims 2. Michael Batchelor, who would be revealed as Bella's brother in The Sims 2, is another Sim available from the Family Bin. At this point he's just graduated college and is living the bachelor's lifestyle. However, despite sharing a skin tone and face type, it's never actually mentioned or suggested that he and Bella are related. See, when dissecting the lore of The Sims, it's very important to keep in mind that, well, it's The Sims, the very first entry in the franchise. At this stage, the developers had no idea that it would turn into a multi-million-dollar franchise with multiple games and spin-offs that would develop a complex web of lore. Most of the families, characters, locations, and historical facts included in the original Sims were just put in there without any forethought to the lore and continuity of the series, so a lot of times things were just thrown in randomly or as one-off jokes. Basically, you have to take the lore of The Sims with a grain of salt. It was never intended to be a lore-rich game like the others in the series,
series, and therefore it's likely that Bella and Michael were only decided to be family members in The Sims 2 as a little Easter egg and a fun way to give the characters a bit of depth. Lastly, let's touch on Magic Town. Introduced in the Make and Magic expansion pack, Magic Town is a separate neighborhood that Sims can visit by jumping down a creepy hole accompanied by this really ominous loading screen. I honestly don't know what it is about this loading screen, but it just really unnerves me. Ugh. The town itself is also pretty unnerving. It's established that Magic Town is located on the outskirts of SimCity and it has no roads. It's split into two districts: Creepy Hollow, a dark and decrepit place filled with abandoned manors and shacks, and Calamity Forest, where a carnival has blown into town and set up seemingly overnight. The locations range from creepy to super creepy. Old Man Lum's is a residential lot that's remained vacant ever since its first and only inhabitant, Old Man Lum, drove himself crazy conducting experiments with enchantments. Vernon's Vault is a fun park containing rides, games, and food. Its description reads, Vernon, the pallbearer, came to the swampy side of Calamity Forest when it was nothing more than graveyards. He filled in the especially mucky sections, and up from the earth rose what he described as a vault of reanimated fun. It's extremely dark, covered in gnarled trees and dotted with graves, and carries a very ominous vibe. Another theme park located in Calamity Forest is Clowntastic Land. Though not as overtly themed around death, the lot's color palette is still dark and muted, and it's filled with rides that look like this and this. Don't worry about it, that's not spine-chillingly horrifying or anything. Combine this with the fact that there's a creepy, sad-looking clown janitor called Witty Washout that will appear on the lot, and the tragic clown can also appear, and this lot is a certified nightmare for anyone with coulrophobia. Also, fun fact about Witty Washout, there's an Easter egg in his model where if you look underneath his nose, there's a horrifying clown face texture on the bottom. In many ways, Magic Town is a predecessor to Midnight Hollow and Moonlight Falls. The three are towns themed around magic and the supernatural that choose to take on a very dark and eerie aesthetic rather than something lighthearted and wondrous. Even the less horror-themed lots in Calamity Forest with their burnt autumnal colors and magical NPCs take on an eerie and uncomfortable vibe that make you want to hop right back through that hole and back into the normal Sims world. Being an Electronic Arts title, The Sims of course had copious expansion packs filled to the brim with new content and items. Live and Large, House Party, Hot Date, Vacation, Unleash, Superstar, Making Magic, That's Life. Wait, one of these things is not like the others. Yes, published by X Media Publishing in 2001, That's Life was an unlicensed and unofficial expansion pack for The Sims which added over 2,000 new items to the game. It also billed itself as a database and management tool since it was effectively just a menu that players could use to install and uninstall a bunch of custom content including fan characters, celebrities, and licensed items. Yeah, if you couldn't tell by this point, not only was That's Life not an official Sims product, but it also stole a ton of custom content from sites like The Sims Resource, Well Dressed Sims, and 7 Deadly Sims, with the program even having the gall to credit the artist that they directly stole from. What sets it apart from many modern day fan-made expansions or custom content packs, aside from the fact that it's all stolen, is that it had a widespread physical release. This thing actually came in a physical box that was apparently sold in stores throughout Europe. The packaging on the box contains a warning that reads, quote, "This program is not authorized by Maxis, nor is it linked to Maxis in any way. The purchase of this program only makes sense if you own The Sims and possibly Live and Large." Which is potentially the funniest warning label on any game ever. What do you mean possibly? You made it! Despite the copious disclaimers on the box and in the game manual that the game wasn't affiliated with Maxis, the early Simming community was still furious over this bootleg box of lies and petitioned for it to be taken off of shelves. So obviously X Media Publishing did the reasonable thing and made a second one. That's Life 2 added even more items into the game, but with an interesting twist. It had a first-person mode that allowed you to actually walk around a 3D shopping mall to look at and buy items. You could select a sim from any neighborhood, and given that they had enough simoleons, or rather credits, they could go on a 3D first-person shopping spree. According to Lazy Game Reviews, who made a video on this wannabe expansion 8 years ago, it performs extremely poorly with severe frame rate drops and frequent crashes. As a side note, I'm using LGR's footage here because I couldn't get my hands on a copy of That's Life, so you should totally check out his channel. His videos are awesome. But despite the terrible performance, the bootleg nature, and the fact that all of the content is just stolen, there is a tiny part of me that thinks that this is just a little bit cool. Being able to actually walk around and be immersed in the 3D world of The Sims, especially during this era where the gameplay was quite flat, is really neat. But being neat doesn't excuse it from also being trash. X Media Publishing was trying to trick people into buying an unofficial product that barely worked and was filled with stolen custom content content that you could literally download for free online. But hey, I guess that's life. For all of its flaws, oddities, and pants-shittingly terrifying music, The Sims will always be legendary. It was literally the blueprint. It was one of the first games of its kind to take the world by storm and launch the life simulation genre into the mainstream. When it was pitched, the idea of an everyday life simulator and house builder was criticized as boring and mundane, but The Sims is anything but. It's not afraid to be different, it's random and weird and wacky, it's filled with snarky humor and biting commentary, and at times it's off-putting and creepy. It's unpredictable and strange, but that's what makes it The Sims, and that's why so many people of all ages and demographics from all across the globe have connected with it on such a personal level. It's a wonderfully weird game, and if you haven't ever played it, I can't recommend it enough, though unfortunately they don't actually sell copies of it anymore. If you want to play it like I did for this video though, I'm sure you'll find a copy out there somewhere. There's actually something in my eye now. Before we wrap up, I want to give a huge thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. The Sims, one of the most influential and popular video game series in the world, selling over 200 million copies worldwide. That's a lot of simoleons. The innovative first installment of the series was created by game designer Will Wright and published in early 2000 to overwhelmingly positive reviews. And from there, the life simulator / home building simulator / removing the ladder from the pool simulator only grew in popularity. I've always been an avid Sims fan ever since I was a little baby, from Sims 1 to Sims 4 and all the weird console spin-off releases as well for some reason. Sims Castaway, my beloved. I've been wanting to cover The Sims on this channel for a long time, so I thought I'd do a little series going through the drama, the scandals, the bugs and glitches, and the weird, cursed, and creepy lore of each Sims game. Despite on the surface being life simulators with no discernible plot, the Sims games have plenty of secrets, from the weird and wacky to the genuinely creepy. So let's dive into the cursed lore of The Sims 2. Why am I starting with The Sims 2 rather than going in chronological order? Because I like to cause chaos and distress. Without further ado, let's make like there's no ladder in the pool and jump right in. The Sims 2, released on September 14th, 2004, was a huge step up from the previous installment. Not only did it feel more realistic and immersive than ever before thanks to the 3D graphics, which were pretty impressive at the time, but Sims themselves had more personality than ever before. Now they had hopes and fears, aspirations and memories, their relationships were deeper and more complex. Many veteran players consider The Sims 2 to have the most unique, expressive and realistic Sims of all the games, though of course this is a topic of debate within the community. It was a game with truly endless options, allowing Simmers to create and play in whatever weird and wacky ways that they wanted. But we're not here to talk about how great The Sims 2 is, though it is great, don't get me wrong. We're here to talk about all the mysteries surrounding it. Perhaps The Sims 2 was always fated to have a dark tone. Early in development, rumors began to circulate that a fire caused Maxis to lose all of the work they had done on The Sims 2 beta, causing them to have to start all over again. It's unknown whether this is actually true. One article on Unseen64 claims, quote, "All the game's development data was lost during a small office server room fire that resulted in most of the game being developed again from scratch." However, their source for this is just posts from the Mod The Sims forum speculating about the situation, so it's all pretty unsubstantiated. Still, it's a rumor that's haunted the game since the very beginning, an ominous start to a game with some pretty ominous lore hidden away. So, let's get into it. The Sims 2 may look like a simple and innocent game. It's a life simulator where you make your Sims go to work and build them houses and watch haplessly as their kitchen catches fire for the 4th time in a row. But there's more to the series than meets the eye. There's an eeriness to all of the games, certain features that are a little off, times where the atmosphere shifts to feel mysterious and eerie. All of the games have their own creepy quirks, and The Sims 2 is no exception. Let's talk about death, keeping it light for our first section. The Sims is a life simulator, and unfortunately with life comes the promise of an inevitable inevitable death. Sims live and Sims die, it's kinda what they do, but The Sims 2 began really leaning into the bizarre and shocking deaths thing. Alongside the usual suspects like old age, starvation, and disease, there are tons of wacky and kind of upsetting ways that Sims can kick the bucket. If a Sim leaves enough dirty dishes on the lot, they can be consumed by a swarm of flies. Ghosts can frighten Sims to death. While cloud gazing or stargazing, there's a very small chance that a satellite will randomly fall on Sims. Business Sims can use an action called Rally Forth to hype up their employees, but if their needs drop too low, they'll choke to death. If you make a poor quality kite, it will become evil and attract lightning, which can cause your Sim to be struck while flying it. Your Sim can die stuck in an elevator, they can be crushed trying to pull out a Murphy bed, and they can be bludgeoned by hail, among other things. Darkly, one item available for download on the Sims2.com website was the Running with Scissors playset, which was literally just a pair of scissors that your Sim could run around with. The scissors had no purpose or use within the game other than giving your Sim the chance to fall and be impaled if they run with them for too long. Come on, Maxis, why do you want to give these poor Sims even more ways to die at the hands of their malevolent masters? Another little dark trivia fact for you, in the unpatched base game there was a choking glitch that would cause Sims to mysteriously die at random, and pregnant Sims were, quote, extremely vulnerable to sudden death. Obviously this was patched out pretty quick, but yikes. So your Sim's life has come to a gruesome and untimely end at the hands of a Murphy bed or a freak satellite incident. What next? Well, naturally, they turn into a ghost. Ghosts were introduced in The Sims 1, but it wasn't until The Sims 2 that they were really fleshed out and became a bit of a staple within the game. Well, I mean, technically they don't have flesh, but you know what I mean. Ghost Sims will look and act in unique ways depending on how they died. For example, Sims who died of drowning will be blue and will leave puddles on the ground. Sims who died by electrocution will be yellow and emit sparks. Rally Forth ghosts will be gold and hold a megaphone. Sims who starved will be transparent and will constantly check the fridge, etc. Some will also randomly reenact their deaths. The ghosts of children are particularly well known in The Sims 2 for how scary / totally glitchy they are. This isn't like a Skyrim thing. Young Sims can technically die within the game, but they'll have no walking animations, will sometimes lack facial animations, will appear to teleport randomly around the lot, and will trigger random NPCs to arrive. We'll touch on the sheer bugginess of the game later, but for now all you need to know is that this is just one of many different glitches found within the game. Just keep that in mind as we go forward. Ghosts are known to haunt houses, and many Simmers found themselves terrified while playing at night as strange sounds and horror music would start playing at random times if they had ghosts or tombstones on the lot. It was especially freaky since sometimes these ghosts were unbeknownst to the player, meaning that sometimes random horror stingers would just play in the middle of the night with the player unable to find the cause. Unnerving to say the least. Ghosts aren't the only supernatural skulking around in The Sims 2. The game introduced life states, also known as occults, which are basically just various monstrous or mythical beings that your Sims can turn into. You know, witches, vampires, aliens, werewolves, stuff like that. And actually, while we're talking about werewolves, they have appeared in every Sims game, but they are especially freaky looking in The Sims 2. They really softened them up for The Sims 3 and 4, but there's something about these sort of unrefined Sims 2 werewolves that, ugh. Perhaps one of the most grim life states is that of the zombie. Sims can be turned into zombies in 3 different ways. The Resurrectonometron is an item that allows you to pay the Grim Reaper to bring a Sim back. If you're stingy with your simoleons, old Grim will bring your loved one back to life as a zombie. You can also use a genie to wish for a Sim to come back, but the wish may fail, resulting in a zombie Sim. Lastly, witches can cast an evil spell on a deceased Sim to bring them back from the dead. You might be thinking, well, this is great, the family gets their loved one back, the zombie Sim gets a second lease on life, everything is all sunshine and rainbows, but not so. While they exist in every installment of the Sims series, zombies have particularly horrific implications in The Sims 2. When they're brought back, their faces will be gaunt and their skin pale, they'll be unable to move any quicker than a slow shamble, and all of their skills will be forgotten, and they'll be unable to conceive any children. They're immortal and will never age, and there's no cure, meaning that they're basically stuck like this forever. The fact that their relationship with whoever brought them back will be significantly lowered and becoming a zombie will be registered as a negative memory for most Sims indicate that this isn't seen as a second chance and a new lease on life, but rather a curse and a disruption of their eternal rest. Many Sims players have spoken about the eerie vibes that they get while playing The Sims 2. Say what you want, but The Sims 2 was such a fever dream. Most of the time you're sitting there like, am I playing a life simulator game, a comedy game, or a horror game? I can't tell. There were certain points in this game that scared me as a kid. I couldn't put it into words though, just eerie subtleties. The Sims 4 and 3 have nothing on how truly terrified Sims 2 had me at times. I'm really glad to see other people found this game creepy at times. My sister set me up on a family PC back when I was 9 to play The Sims 2 by myself. It may just be because I was young, but there was always an underlying sense of foreboding to the game, like something sinister could happen at any moment if I wasn't paying enough attention. While the game is often comical, there are moments of quiet, moments of eeriness, moments of isolation that can make the game feel a lot darker than it's probably meant to be. Nighttime in particular can be pretty unnerving in The Sims 2. Not only are burglars and ghosts more likely to spawn on the lot, but the quiet nighttime ambience carries a certain loneliness. The dark, stretching 3D landscape can feel liminal and empty, and the virtual nighttime feels distinctly mysterious, dark, and at times isolating. Many of the NPCs in the game are weird and off-putting as well. The social bunny is a sim in a bunny costume that appears when your sim's social needs are very low. I know the bunny costume is meant to be lovable and disarming, but it just makes me think of Donnie Darko. Similarly, the therapist will poof into existence when your sims go into aspiration failure in order to treat them. Both the social bunny and the therapist can only be seen by the sim who they arrive for. Switching to another sim's perspective will cause them to vanish, suggesting that both of these characters are just figures of the imagination. The Grim Reaper is also on full show in this game, creepy wispy hood and exposed skeleton and all. They really toned him down in the later games, so it's cool to see him in all of his undead glory here. When arriving to take old sims to the afterlife, he'll sometimes arrive with two female hula dancers referred to as hula zombies. I don't know, I just think that's kind of creepy. Like, they look like normal sims, but they're apparently zombies? I don't know, unnerving, weird. There are plenty of other miscellaneous oddities. A secret lot called Water Vista place that looks like Baba Yaga's hut just off camera, the scarecrow item that'll suddenly come to life and jump scare sims, and the way that sims will turn to face the camera and look at you when you get close to them, breaking the fourth wall. But those are little details, just atmospheric spooks tucked away within the hidden corners of the game. The Sims 2 has some of the most famous and widely speculated mysteries in the entire series, so let's get into some proper lore. So at this point you're probably gleaning that there's more to The Sims 2 than meets the eye, and if that's what you were gleaning, well, you would be gleaning correctly. Good glean. Now you might be thinking, Izzy, this is The Sims. There's no story here other than the story of my sim who died burning to death after their mac and cheese caught fire for the 8th time in 10 minutes, and, well, yes and no. While the mainline Sims games don't have any plot or storyline to follow, there aren't any quests or objectives, and it's up to you to make your own fun, there's still plenty of lore. We can learn a lot about the various neighborhoods and the families that live there through descriptions, bios, memories, family trees, and even environmental storytelling within the different lots. All of the Sims games have lore, but The Sims 2 has some of the most iconic and memorable stories, thanks in part to how sinister they are. Let's start with Strangetown, the epitome of Sims 2 weirdness. Strangetown is one of the 3 starting neighborhoods that come with the Sims 2 base game, the other 2 being Veronaville and Pleasantview. Strangetown is the smallest of the 3 and is an old abandoned military/government testing site in the middle of the desert that's been refurbished into a town, and with street names like Road to Nowhere, Dead End Lane, and Cover Up Road, how could you not feel at home? It's clearly inspired by the Nevada desert and Area 51, which is fitting since Strangetown is heavily linked to aliens. One of the most iconic features of the town is a giant crater with a crashed UFO inside it. All of the public lots are decommissioned military buildings, and oh yeah, there are actual aliens running around. Pollination Technician 9 Smith, also known as PT9, is an alien that's moved to Strangetown to settle down with his family, the Smith family, which you can play as. We can actually learn a lot about aliens and alien culture in The Sims 2 by looking at PT9's family tree. Apparently, aliens are assigned different roles within their society. For example, every female alien in his family tree is called a birth queen, whereas the males are colony drones. He and one other alien on the tree are called pollination technicians, a role that requires them to abduct and impregnate Sims. This is why PT9 has 2 estranged half-daughters in Strangetown who are also half-alien, because during his working days he abducted their father and impregnated him. Basically, there's a whole lot of half-alien kids running around because Strangetown is a hub for alien abductions. And this leads us neatly into our next creepy piece of lore, and perhaps the most famous and enduring mystery in the entire Sims series, The disappearance of Bella Goth. To untangle the mystery behind Bella's disappearance, we first have to take a look at the woman herself. Bella Goth was born Bella Batchelor, daughter of Jocasta and Simus Batchelor. Her childhood best friend was Mortimer Goth, who she would eventually marry. She always had an interest in the dark and macabre, so the Goth family was a perfect fit for her. After the two fell in love and got married, they moved to a mansion on 165 Sim Lane in Pleasantview where they had two children, Cassandra and Alexander Goth. Bella was last seen in Pleasantview with the local ladies' man / serial cheater Don Lothario. The last photo of Bella depicts her and Don standing on the deck stargazing at night. According to Don's memories, he attempted to make out with Bella, a move that she rejected. Bella did not return home that night and was declared missing. Her photo can actually be seen on milk cartons in the game, and there are several items that reference her, including one pretty creepy painting called Bella Squared. Though many speculated that Bella was dead, her picture on the family tree wasn't grayed out and her status did not list her as deceased. Bizarrely, after Bella's disappearance, Don met, seduced, and subsequently proposed to her daughter, Cassandra Goth. So you might be asking, well, what does any of this have to do with Strangetown? And I'm glad that you asked. Bella Goth can actually be found in Strangetown as a townie, which is basically an NPC that you can interact with and add to your own household. On a technical level, the original Pleasantview Bella and the Strangetown Bella are two separate characters in the game files, but they're actually slightly different on a story level as well. Comparing the two side by side, they actually have slightly different facial features, not enough to be immediately noticeable, but just enough to be slightly off-putting. The two are voiced by different voice actors, and Strangetown Bella has no memories or connections to her past life in Pleasantview. She's not even considered to be related to Mortimer or her children. Now, a lot of data and characters in The Sims 2 are buggy and corrupted as hell, so this could just be clunky code, but Strangetown Bella is considered to be blood related to several characters in Strangetown, and she also has relationships with 63 unknown Sims, as well as characters like the Grim Reaper and the Hula Zombies. It's near impossible to reunite Bella with her family. If you use cheats to spawn in the original Pleasantview Bella, she'll appear to be fine, but if you leave the lot and come back, she'll get a ghost texture and disappear, and a pop-up will appear telling you that Bella has died on another lot. If you try to move Strangetown Bella from Strangetown into Pleasantview, it will cause both neighborhoods to corrupt. So the real question is, well, what happened to Bella Goth? And there are two main theories. The first conclusion that most players jump to is that Don Lothario killed Bella. After all, she was last seen with him, and his romantic advances being rejected may have pushed him over the edge. In The Sims 3, there's a book written by Bella's son Alexander Goth called Murder in Pleasantview, which hints towards this. However, the far more widely believed theory is that Bella was abducted by aliens. She was last seen using a telescope, the main way that Sims can get abducted in the game, and later she's found with no memories in Strangetown, alien capital of the Sims world. Despite the strange differences between the two Bellas, which has caused some to speculate that Bella was cloned, this theory was debunked in an interview on the Sims 2 website back when it was still up. From the interview, quote, "What happened the night you were abducted? Did the saucer crash? I'm not sure about all the details, but I've had dreams of being in some kind of ship. I don't think there was a crash or I wouldn't have woken up. I remember green men with big black eyes. It didn't make much sense then and certainly doesn't now. It seemed like only moments and I was somewhere entirely different." In this interview, Bella also suggests that Nina and Dina Caliente were involved in her abduction. Nina and Dina Caliente are two sisters who moved to Pleasantview shortly before Bella's abduction and suspiciously are both dating Don Lothario. Even more suspiciously, they're both part alien. And even more suspiciously, Dina is the widow of Bella's brother, Michael Batchelor, who players theorize Dina married due to her being a gold digger. And even more suspiciously, after Bella's disappearance, Dina starts up a romantic relationship with Mortimer Goth, Bella's husband. It's a mess. Pleasantview is fucked up. Dina's aspiration is fortune, meaning that she wants to accrue as much money as possible, and this in combination with her being the widow of the rich Michael Batchelor and a pop-up that tells us that Dina is digging for gold indicate that her next target is the extremely rich Mortimer Goth. The Caliente family's description reads, quote, "Was it just coincidence that the Caliente sisters arrived on the eve of Bella's disappearance?
Chat.
And is their interest in Mortimer physical or fiscal? It's possible that to get Bella out of
I've
the way
eaten,
and to get to Mortimer, Dina used her
and I'm ready to go.
half-family heritage to pull some strings and get Bella abducted. According to Bella's interview, she
Let me,
believes that Don
unfreeze video.
Lothario is
There you
a
go.
misunderstood man and insists that she was simply there to welcome him
There
to
you
the
go.
neighborhood and chat about life. It doesn't sound to me like Don was involved. The rejected kiss is likely a red herring, and the fact that the alien abduction took place at Don's house just a coincidence, or perhaps a way for Dina to make Don look guilty and shift the blame off herself. Don subsequently dating both Caliente sisters and Cassandra Goth is less easily explained,
I guess he's just kind of a freak and maybe Cassandra reminds him of Bella. I don't know, like I said, Pleasant View's messed up. There's also a theory proposed in the Bella interview that Dina actually wanted to get to Mortimer not for his money but to get closer to his top secret scientific inventions. Quote, I think someone sent Dina to town specifically to pull Mortimer away from me. I know he's a genius and his work is important to a lot of people. I couldn't have possibly imagined that trying to create a life elixir that could help everyone would ever push somebody to ruin our marriage. And why take me away from him? Perhaps they thought I was a distraction and believed that taking me away from the love of my life would make him stop his work. Maybe Dina, being an alien, was sent to Pleasant View to gain intel on Mortimer's creations for whatever reason. Regardless of why Bella was abducted, it's confirmed in The Sims 3 that the abduction theory is correct. There's a neighborhood in the game called Lunar Lakes which is set on a far-off alien planet. In this neighborhood, Bella Goth's body can be found buried in the graveyard. She died of old age and looks extremely different, having pale green skin, a gaunt appearance, and short cropped blonde hair. Sim guru Sarah confirmed that this is the same Bella from The Sims 2, and her appearance can be explained by the fact that all deceased Sims after Twinbrook have this pale corpse-like appearance. The short blonde hair is less easily explained, but I don't know, the girl's allowed to change her style, especially after being chucked into space. So essentially, after over a decade of theorizing, the enduring mystery of Bella's disappearance has been put to rest. Sadly, it seems that she was abducted, dropped in Strangetown, and potentially abducted again and taken to Lunar Lakes, where she lived out the last of her days without ever seeing her husband or children again. And while Bella Goth's disappearance is by far the most well-known mystery in The Sims 2, it's by far the only one. Another eerie character from Strangetown is Olive Spectre, presumed serial killer. Olive Spectre is an elder Sim who lives at 13 Dead End Lane, a house that just so happens to have a giant burial garden filled with the bodies of 21 Sims. One of her first victims was her very first love, a man named Earl E. Demise. Haha, get it? They were engaged, but he died shortly after leaving Olive at the altar and was followed by his brother Tim Lee Demise. Again, it's like another pun. Bizarrely, both died of electrocution. Both of Olive's parents died in a fire and were buried in the yard alongside her neighbor Lila Grant, followed by her first husband Rigor Mortis, her second husband Euthanasia, and her third and final husband Ichabod Spectre. Her sister and brother-in-law also died in a mysterious drowning accident and were buried in the yard, which is why Olive's niece Ophelia is living with her. The rest of the deceased Sims are just randoms, including an elderly repairman, a bug exterminator, and a maid, as well as several teenagers. Olive Spectre's bio ominously reads, quote, Olive will stop at nothing to get what she wants. She spends her time collecting mushrooms, sharpening sticks, and excavating her yard. It seems pretty cut and dry here. The lady is clearly a serial killer and, well, yes, but there's a little bit more to it than that. Olive actually has a child called Nervous Subject who was taken away by Child Protective Services, and don't worry, we'll get into more detail about where Nervous is soon. According to Olive's memories, shortly before she gave birth to Nervous, she woohooed with the Grim Reaper, leading many to speculate that the literal embodiment of death itself is Olive's baby daddy. Now, the leading theory among Simmers is that Olive is murdering all of these Sims to be able to see the Grim Reaper again, to get closer with him and rekindle their relationship. After all, her name is Olive Spectre, you know, like I love Spectre, or I love Spectre. If you couldn't tell, the Sims series really loves their puns. However, looking at the chronology of Olive's memories, the bulk of the 21 Sims in the yard died before she met and subsequently got down with the Grim Reaper, so this doesn't really add up. Another theory is that her first husband leaving her at the altar caused her to snap and become a serial killer, but again, according to her memories, Ellie Demise was actually the second Sim buried in her yard. The first was a random pizza delivery woman called Danielle Greaves, who died of starvation. Now, it's entirely possible that several of the Sims in Olive's garden really did die by accident and she had nothing to do with it. Several succumbed to old age or starvation, so Danielle could have just been an unrelated deceased Sim that Olive offered to commemorate in her garden. But it's clear from her bio, the sheer number of deceased husbands and family members, and the suspicious circumstances surrounding many of these deaths that they were no mere accident or coincidence. Just be careful moving your Sims in next to the Spectre household, that's all I'll say. So what about Olive's son, the half-human, half-Grim Reaper, Nervous Subject? He was taken away from his mother by Child Protective Services at a young age and placed in the custody of Loki and Cersei Beaker, a couple of mad scientists described by the game as secretive and less than neighborly. They live in a large house on a hill isolated from the rest of the town, and it's inside this desolate desert mansion that we can find the basement cellar where they perform experiments on Nervous Subject. Strangely, Nervous isn't listed as being related to the Beakers, and they have no memory of adopting him. Instead, according to his memories, he moved in with the Beakers as a child, which may indicate that neither party saw this as a loving adoption. Which is fair. I mean, these people are basically holding him hostage as a guinea pig for all their weird, creepy experiments. In The Sims 4, there's a pop-up that indicates that the Beakers were interested in Nervous subject due to his quote-unquote genetic composition and sire, basically confirming that Grimm is indeed his father. While Strangetown is absolutely the standout neighborhood in The Sims 2 just by the sheer volume of creepy lore, there are still plenty of spooky secrets in some of the other neighborhoods. In the idyllic Pleasant View, not only are there missing Sims, cheating Lotharios, and half-alien sisters running around, but there's also a pool ladder-based mystery. The Broke family consists of young single mother Brandy Broke and her children, who are struggling after the death of their father Skip Broke. Skip's death is described as a suspicious pool ladder accident, and in the Broke's backyard we can see a tiny pool with no ladder. Some players have theorized that the culprit may be Brandy or one of the other sus characters from around town, but to be honest I think it was just a funny little nod to the whole pool ladder in-joke within the community. And yeah, maybe it is kinda dark that there's a running joke within the Sims community that it's fun to drown your Sims in the pool by removing the ladder, but you gotta admit it's kind of funny. I like the idea that you can't exit a body of water unless there's a ladder in it. I mean, Sims must hate the beach. The last notably creepy piece of Sims lore, and the one I find the creepiest of all, is the mystery of the House of Fallen Trees from the Sims 2 Nightlife expansion pack. The House of Fallen Trees is a lot for sale in the downtown neighborhood. It's a large gothic manor with an extensive backyard filled with weeping willows and an unnaturally deep basement with 2 coffins inside. Upon moving into the home, you'll quickly realize that it's very much haunted. I mean, to be honest, look at the place. What exactly did you expect? 2 of the ghosts, Vorduin and Freakerith, who died by fire and Rogue Satellite respectively, belong to the Triku family, the very gothic and presumably very rich original owners of the manor. All other members of the Triku family are deceased and buried in the public cemetery downtown, all of them having bizarrely died from starvation. The 3rd ghost in the House of Fallen Trees is a young woman named Raynell Ninja. She's assumed to have moved into the house after the Triku family and have subsequently died at the hands of their ghosts, given that her cause of death is listed as fright. The House of Fallen Trees itself is extremely unique in that it has special haunted house lighting which dims and in some cases turns off the lights after it gets dark. This lighting effect either appears to be an intentional aesthetic decision or some sort of graphical / lighting bug. Either way, it gives the very clearly haunted house a lot of ambience. There are several other mysteries surrounding the House of Fallen Trees. In the late night expansion, a new object is available to purchase, a gothic cemetery-esque statue titled the Grey Woman of SimCity. The woman is said to have died in a tragic house fire and now watches over young children to protect them from fire. What's interesting is that the only 2 locations downtown that the Grey Woman can be found is in the backyard of the House of Fallen Trees and in the cemetery where the rest of the Triku family is buried. Since both Triku teens died in fire-related accidents, some have theorized that the house is cursed by fire. Others theorize that the Grey Woman may have been the original owner of the house given the special statue in commemoration of her. Due to their gothic appearance and names, as well as their unusual family tree and the coffins in the basement, it's been theorized that the Triku family may have actually been a clan of vampires. This also makes sense as the vampire life state was added to the game in the Nightlife expansion. We may never know exactly who or what the Trikus were, why they all died so